Chapter 99. Laoi, there's a woman outside the Fu who says she knows Third Madam. She also says she has something very important to discuss with Laoi. Yarrow too bowed and said respectfully, "Did you ask her what it was about?" Yarrow Junting glanced at Yarrow too, his voice gradually turning cold. This old servant asked her, but she said she would only explain her purpose if she saw Laoi. This old servant gave her silver taels, but it seems she didn't come for money. Yarrow too knew what Yarrow Junting was thinking and added, "Call her in." Yarrow Junting's two black brows furrowed and his voice was slightly displeased. He was sure that even Su Mu's relatives wouldn't dare behave atrociously in his Yarrow Seong Fu. Not long after Yarrow too left, he brought in an old woman about 50 years old. The old woman's face was glossy and there was an extremely eye-catching red peony in her fluffy hair bun. She was dressed like the madam of Joyful Spring Brothel. When she saw the old woman, Yarrow Moen raised her jade fingers and carelessly rubbed her forehead. She remembered telling Liu Xing to remind her to dress more cleanly, but she didn't expect that she would dress up so exaggeratedly. She didn't know if her father would believe her words. "Who are you?" Yarrow Junting looked at the unfamiliar face and asked suspiciously. Replying Prime Minister, "This commoner's wife is Do Li Shi." Seeing Yarrow Junting speak, Do Li Shi immediately greeted him with a smile. "Yarrow too." Yarrow Junting called out in disgust. At his side, Yarrow too hurriedly took 2 steps forward and pulled Do Li Shi back. "Don't you have something to say to Laoi? Quickly say it," Yarrow too urged. "Oh, I almost forgot. Laoi, this commoner dares to swear to the heavens that Yarrow Yu is not Laoi's biological son." Do Li Shi's expression was solemn as she vowed. Hearing this, Yarrow Junting abruptly knocked the cup lid in his hand on the rim, his sharp eyes shooting out extremely cold light. "Audacious commoner, what nonsense are you spouting?" Yarrow too didn't expect Do Li Shi to say such arrogant words and immediately wanted to drive her out. "Darren, please understand. If there was no evidence, how could this commoner dare to speak nonsense? Darren doesn't remember this commoner. That Su Muzi gave birth and this commoner was the one who delivered the baby." Do Li Shi refuted as if she didn't see the dark clouds on Yarrow Junting's face. "Get out." Yarrow too reached out to pull Madame Do away, but was stopped by Yarrow Junting. "Let her speak." Hanja's voice was bone-piercingly cold. Yarrow Moen sensed that sinister chill and her lips curved into a faint smile. "Listen, my lord asked me to say it. Let go of me." Madame Do pushed Yarrow too away recklessly and looked at Yarrow Junting with a big smile again. "My lord doesn't know that Su Muzi is not a virtuous woman. After she was driven out of the Prime Minister residence, she got together with my nephew Ju Chungwu. The two of them didn't have a matchmaker, so they secretly lived a simple life. Later, when they had no money, they had ideas about my lord. After getting my lord's pity, that Su Muzi was not grateful. Not only did she continue to associate with my nephew, but she also spent all the money you gave her on my nephew. This commoner didn't get anything at all." Do Li Shi said eloquently, not noticing the dark clouds and stormy waves surging on Yarrow Junting's face. On the side, Yarrow Moen squinted at Do Li and couldn't help but sigh. In fact, as long as she told the truth, she could make Yarrow Junting half dead. Now that she was adding oil and vinegar, it seemed that Yarrow Junting would be ill for a while. "Get to the point." Yarrow Junting gritted his teeth and said word by word. "Yes, yes, yes." Replying to my lord, "When you knew that Su Muzi was pregnant, she had actually been pregnant for 3 months. 3 months ago, she wasn't with you. In this case, Yarrow Yu is my nephew's child," Madame Do said with a serious face. "Impossible, the doctor didn't say that when he felt the pulse." On the side, Yarrow too tried his best to refute. "That's why I said that you have been kept in the dark. That doctor is from Zhuang's pharmacy and is very familiar with my nephew. Naturally, he would help my nephew." Hearing Do Li calling him nephew, Yarrow Moen couldn't help but want to laugh. In this case, drawing a clear line was the most sensible. "How could this be?" Yarrow too looked at Yarrow Junting in astonishment, but saw that Yarrow Junting's face was purple, his eyes were dyed red, and the veins on his hand that was holding the teacup were bulging, as if they would explode at any time. That's why Prime Minister has been helping someone raise their son. Not only that, even if that Su Muzi was taken to the Prime Minister residence, she was still seeing my nephew. At that time, when this commoner saw them on the street, if I didn't know better, I would really think that they were a family of 3. Also, bang, when Madame Doe was still murmuring, there was a sudden bang. Yarrow Enchanting suddenly threw the teacup in his hand, and the tea splashed on Madame Doe's hand, which made her wake up a little. Your Excellency, this matter, from the beginning to the end, it was that bitch Su Muzi who seduced my nephew, and it has nothing to do with this commoner. This commoner heard that you want to investigate thoroughly and offer a large reward, so that you would put righteousness before family. This is all this commoner knows, that, the reward. Seeing that the situation was not good, Dolly couldn't help choking and looking at Yarrow too. Who was it that told you to investigate this matter thoroughly and even offered a huge reward? Yarrow too asked solemnly after hearing the clues. On the side, Yarrow Moen slightly raised her eyes to look at Dolly. Her clear eyes were indistinguishable. Investigate thoroughly. You must investigate thoroughly. Yarrow too, do it immediately, I want to know the truth. Before Dolly could respond, Yarrow Enchanting suddenly pounded the table and stood up. His eyes were like copper bells. Yarrow Moen clearly saw the blue veins on his forehead bulging as if they were going to explode at any time. This old servant understands. Master, shall this old servant help you back to your room to rest? Seeing that Yarrow Enchanting's face was extremely bad, Yarrow too came forward worriedly. Investigate thoroughly immediately. Cough cough, cough cough cough. Yarrow Enchanting suddenly felt a fishy and salty taste in his throat, and a mouthful of blood splashed out without warning. Master, someone come. Call the doctor. Seeing Yarrow Enchanting like this, Yarrow too immediately shouted. Yarrow Moen also came forward, looking anxious. Father, how are you? Don't scare Wanna. Yarrow Moen's voice was heavy with a crying tone. She was also a little worried. If he died of anger, it would be too easy for him. She wanted to make her mother suffer and her sister suffer little by little. In the room, Dolly didn't expect that things would go to this point. If the Prime Minister really died of anger, not only would she not get the reward, she was afraid that her little life would be in danger. So when everyone was in a hurry, Dolly quietly left the main hall and the Prime Minister's mansion. According to the doctor, Yarrow Enchanting's anxiety had attacked his heart and it wouldn't be a problem if he took care of himself. Seeing that Yarrow Enchanting had fainted, Yarrow too ordered Chen Chong to send the doctor away while he went to find Yarrow Moen in Shujing Shen. Consort Yarrow Niang is here. This old servant has been looking for you. Yarrow too came forward respectfully and bowed his head. Ting Yu, Ben Gong is a bit hungry. Go to the kitchen and bring some pastries over. Yarrow Moen's clear eyes focused on the lush elm tree in front of her. Ting Yu naturally understood and turned to leave. Niang, this old servant has some things that I don't know if I should say. At this moment, Shujing Shen was completely silent. The elm leaves rustled in the wind. Ben Gong has to listen to Steward Yarrow no matter what. Yarrow Moen withdrew her gaze and slowly turned towards Yarrow too. That Dolly Madam's appearance is very strange. This old servant feels that it was Ben Gong's arrangement. Yarrow Moen had already admitted it before Yarrow too could finish. This kind of straightforward answer made Yarrow too somewhat speechless. Master has just walked out of the pain of losing his son. Also, the young master is already dead. Why did you? You should know best why Ben Gong did it. Furthermore, what Dolly Madam said is the truth. You can go investigate. Yarrow Moen's cold voice was filled with unconcealable anger as she spoke harshly, venting the extreme pain in her heart. When Yarrow too heard this, he subconsciously looked towards the arched door. When he saw that there was no one around, his gaze landed on Yarrow Moen. Niang, you hold a grudge against Master. But Master is Niang's biological father after all. Yarrow too looked towards Yarrow Moen apprehensively. Chapter 100. Moen will remember Steward's kindness to Moen. However, Moen wants to know, when did you find out that Moen had recovered? Yarrow Moen lifted Yarrow too up. When Your Highness and Ting Yu returned to Prime Minister Yarrow's residence, this old servant could tell that Your Highness was different from before. After that, Gao Momo was framed for poisoning Master, and then there was the matter with Lu Yusin. This old servant believes that your highness is no longer the same as before, said Yarrow Tu truthfully. Thankfully, there aren't many people as clear-sighted as steward in Prime Minister Yarrow's residence. Otherwise, Moen really wouldn't know what to do. Yarrow Moen laughed. She had guessed correctly. Yarrow Tu had known from the start. Don't worry, your highness. Yarrow Tu will definitely keep his mouth shut. I definitely won't tell anyone what your highness doesn't want others to know. Yarrow Tu understood Yarrow Moen's meaning and knelt back down. Steward is worrying too much. If you wanted to say it, you would have said it long ago. There was no need to wait until now. Get up. Yarrow Moen was satisfied with Yarrow Tu's reaction. Your highness. Actually, master. Even towards Big Madam, he never had any feelings for her, so. Yarrow Tu had followed Yarrow Enchanting for many years. No matter what, he couldn't bear to see him suffer another blow. So he could disregard Mother's life and allow Do Xianglan to poison Mother? Yarrow Moen's words were icy. Yarrow Tu was speechless. In his opinion, Yarrow Enchanting's coldness was a bit excessive. Some grudges are destined to be irreconcilable. Steward Yarrow, this consort knows that you're loyal, but these are Yarrow Residence's family matters. Do you understand? Yarrow Moen restrained the anger in her eyes. This old servant understands, replied Yarrow Tu quietly. The fact that Yarrow Moen was willing to tell him the truth meant that she trusted him greatly. This kind of trust made it so that he couldn't say anything in front of Master. Yarrow Tu couldn't help but sigh. Yarrow Moen had used her intelligence perfectly, leaving him with no way out. Yarrow Moen nodded slightly, then dismissed Yarrow Tu. Yarrow Moen's lips curved into an elegant smile as she watched Yarrow Tu leave. She believed that after her heartfelt words, Yarrow Tu would know what to do. When Yarrow Moen returned to Guan Osprey Palace, she felt indescribably good. At this time, Yi Junqing walked in carrying Fluffy. Do you really think this king is looking after the cat for you? You've been gone for so long, yet you still haven't come back. Yi Junqing coldly handed Fluffy to Yarrow Moen with a disapproving expression. There's a saying that goes, don't take it for granted. If it weren't for Fluffy, would it have been so easy for your highness to enter the Ministry of Internal Affairs? How did the investigation go? Yarrow Moen gracefully took Fluffy from Yi Junqing and glanced towards his slightly unsightly handsome face. You had someone follow this prince? Yi Junqing suppressed his anger and asked. That's right. How else would Moen know? Yarrow Moen looked at him as if he didn't know at all. Yi Junqing was so angry that he stormed off in a huff. After Yi Junqing left, Yarrow Moen summoned Yin Shui again. What exactly is the esteemed prince investigating? Yarrow Moen restrained the ridicule in her eyes and asked solemnly. Replying Master, the esteemed prince is investigating the background of Nurse Sun, Eunuch Zheng, and Yun reported Yin Shui. Her heart suddenly felt like it was being clenched so tightly that it was bleeding. The pain was indescribable. She still clearly remembered the night she gave birth to Zhong Nurse Sun and Yun had been running around busily, and Eunuch Zheng had even been so happy that he had personally cooked a lot of tonics. They were the people who were the closest to her in this palace, but now that she had returned to the palace, she could no longer see their figures. Yi Hongi, you truly owe Moen too many lives. Master, called Yin Shui softly when she sensed Yarrow Moen's abnormality. It's nothing. Is there any news from Yu Funning? Asked Yarrow Moen solemnly. Yu Funning has hidden guards hiding in Fragrant Steps Pavilion. Yin Shui didn't dare to alarm the hidden guards, so she didn't listen very carefully. However, she did vaguely hear them mention Nurse Sun, Eunuch Zheng, and Yun The incident in the Cold Palace must have something to do with Yu Funning, said Yin Shui confidently. Yu Funning also has hidden guards. No wonder she was able to send the letter into Yi Junqing's hands without anyone noticing. This is troublesome. Yin Shui, go to Phoenix Feather Manor. You must call Yang Nansheng over for this consort, said Yarrow Moen solemnly. Yes. Yin Shui received the order and left. In the main hall, Yarrow Moen's gaze turned slightly cold. In order to help Yi Junqing regain his fighting spirit, Yu Funning had chosen to reveal the cause of her death to him. From her perspective, this wasn't wrong. However, she had overlooked one thing. Yi Junqing was currently in the imperial palace. His every word and action was under Yi Hongyi's control. If there was even the slightest sign of trouble, how could Yi Hongyi spare Yi Junqing's life? This wasn't the path she had lured Yu Fanning down. That night, when Yang Nansheng, who hadn't appeared in a long time, appeared in front of Yarrow Moen could clearly sense the vigilance and wariness in his eyes. This seems to be Guan Osprey Palace. Is Nansheng afraid that I'll steal something? Yarrow Moen looked towards Yang Nansheng innocently. It's hard to say. Whenever Yang Nansheng thought about how Yarrow Moen had tricked the elements, he felt a deep sense of dread towards this woman. Let's get back to business. Moen has something to ask of you. Yarrow Moen indicated for Yang Nansheng to sit down. You can ask of me, but you have to return the elements first. Yang Nansheng seized the opportunity to haggle. Then forget it. In any case, Moen doesn't have much of a relationship with Yi Junqing, so whether he lives or dies has nothing to do with Moen. You can leave now. The moment Yang Nansheng spoke, Yarrow Moen immediately stood up. Don't leave, I'm just joking. Tell me, what's the matter? Yang Nansheng suddenly felt miserable. The dignified martial alliance master, the young master of Phoenix Feather Manor, was actually being completely controlled by a woman. In front of Yarrow Moen, Yang Nansheng always felt like he had a body full of power, but it was like he was hitting a sponge. It's very simple, I want you to kill Yi Junqing. Even in her dreams, Yu Fanning wished that Yi Junqing could come to her Fragrant Steps pavilion to eat, but she didn't want to see that idiot Yarrow Moen again. Thankfully, Yarrow Moen wasn't hugging that damned cat, otherwise she really wouldn't be able to stop herself from blocking Yarrow Moen outside. This concubine kowtows in salute to the esteemed prince, kowtows in salute to consort Yao. The two of you, please take a seat, lunch has already been prepared. Yu Fanning's eyes that were as gentle as water never left Yi Junqing. For someone like Yi Junqing who was surrounded by a halo, no matter where he went, he would always be a beautiful sight. However, it just so happened that there was always an idiot standing next to him. Not only did it make people feel pity, it also made people jealous. I'm truly sorry to disturb Big Sister Consort Xian again. Yarrow Moen walked to the Phoenix table with a smile. Behind her, Yi Junqing snorted disdainfully. It was really hard to imagine that Yarrow Moen would actually say the word sorry. After eating, Yu Fanning finally noticed that Yarrow Moen seemed to be different from before. Not only did she speak less, she would occasionally look around as she ate, as if she was waiting for someone. I'm so full. Big Sister Consort Xian, WN will be leaving first. Just as Yu Fanning was feeling that something was wrong, Yarrow Moen suddenly got up to leave. Then this prince will also take his leave. When Yi Junqing saw that Yarrow Moen had stood up, he naturally didn't want to stay any longer. However, the moment he got up, Yarrow Moen suddenly waved her hand. You can't leave. Sit down. Yarrow Moen looked towards Yi Junqing solemnly as she spoke in a shrill voice. Why? Yi Junqing lifted his brows as he looked towards Yarrow Moen. In any case, you can't leave. Big Sister Consort Xian, make him stay. Wan is leaving. Yarrow Moen walked around the Phoenix table with a flustered expression and strode towards the palace doors. Right at this moment, a gust of wind suddenly blew and a person dressed in black suddenly appeared in the main hall like a god descending. The sharp blade in his hand headed straight for Yi Junqing. There's an assassin. Your Highness, be careful. The moment the black-clothed person appeared, Qian Shi immediately pulled Yu Fanning to a corner. When she turned to look towards Yarrow Moen, she saw that Yarrow Moen had already found a place to hide. After 2 moves, Yi Junqing found out the identity of the person and was puzzled. What are you doing? The moment Yi Junqing opened his mouth, the sharp blade in the black-clothed person's hand came slashing down. When Yu Fanning saw that Yi Junqing wasn't a match, she immediately summoned a flying phoenix to help Yi Junqing. When the black-clothed person saw that the flying phoenix had appeared, he flickered and left. Flying phoenix, retreat. There's no need to chase. Esteemed prince, are you all right? Yu Fanning called back the flying phoenix that was about to chase after the black-clothed person, then ran to Yi Junqing's side. I'm fine. As Yi Junqing replied, he saw Yarrow Moen quietly leave Fragrant Steps Pavilion. Consort Yarrow, you're not waiting for this prince. Yi Junqing didn't even bother to look at Yu Funning as he strode towards Yarrow Moen. When Yu Funning saw that Yi Junqing was leaving, she couldn't help but follow after him. However, she pulled her back. Your Highness, don't worry. This servant saw clearly just now that the esteemed prince wasn't injured, reminded Shi. Chapter 101. It seems like she already knew that someone was coming to assassinate the esteemed prince, which was why she wanted to leave right after taking a few bites. Yu Funning narrowed her eyes slightly. Also, the esteemed prince wanted to leave with her, but she strongly objected. This servant makes a bold guess that Consort Yarrow definitely knew that the assassins were coming and that their target was only the esteemed prince. That's why she didn't run out in panic when the assassins appeared, but hid at the side fearlessly, said Shi confidently. This consort was wrong. Yu Funning took a deep breath before returning to the main hall. Behind her, Shi carefully closed the palace doors and followed. This servant doesn't understand what your highness means. She looked towards her master in confusion. This consort was wrong in trying to let Yi Junqing know the truth behind Yarrow Morshin's death. Think about it, with Yi Junqing's friendship with Yarrow Morshin, once he finds out that Yarrow Morshin was killed, he'll definitely investigate the real culprit, right? Yu Funning analyzed calmly. Isn't that exactly what Master wants? She nodded slightly. But don't forget that Yi Junqing is currently in the Imperial Palace, especially Guan Osprey Palace. There are countless eyes watching him from the shadows and in the open. It's impossible to guard against him. If this consort's guess isn't wrong, the assassins just now were definitely sent by His Majesty. That's the only way to explain why that idiot would know beforehand and be so fearless. Yu Funning bit her lips as her hatred towards Yi Junyi increased. Then in other words, His Majesty found out that the esteemed prince was investigating Yarrow Morshin's death? His Majesty was afraid that the esteemed prince would find out, so he acted first? Then wouldn't the esteemed prince be in danger? Shi frowned as she looked towards Yu Funning worriedly. His Majesty has always been suspicious, otherwise he wouldn't have plotted to take away half of Huan Heng's military power. Now that he's determined to kill Yi Junqing, there'll definitely be a second time. Shi, this consort can't just watch him die. No matter what, this consort has to save him. Yu Funning's crystal-clear eyes became misty. She held Shi's hand tightly as tears quietly fell from her eyes. She could tolerate the man she didn't love running wild on her, and she could bear the fact that the man she loved didn't have her in his heart, but she really couldn't watch the person she cared about the most die in front of her. Niang, she doesn't know how to persuade you. She only wants to remind Niang that before you do anything, you have to think about old master. She knew that her mistress had already made up her mind and there was no point in trying to persuade her. After leaving Fragrant Steps Pavilion, Yi Junqing endured himself as he followed behind Yarrow Moen. When he confirmed that Yarrow Moen had no intention of explaining herself, he finally couldn't take it anymore. He took a step forward and blocked her way. Don't you think you should say something? Yi Junqing growled angrily. Prince still looks better when you smile. You look terrible right now. Moen's scared. Yarrow Moen patted her chest as if she was serious. Her clear eyes blinked twice. This trick of yours is useless against this king. Speak, why did you let Yang Nansheng dress like that? Why did you let him assassinate this king? What is your purpose? Hurry and speak. From the first time he saw Yarrow Moen in the esteemed prince residence, he knew that this woman wasn't simple. The more they interacted, the more Yi Junqing felt that Yarrow Moen herself was a mystery that he would never be able to figure out. You really didn't notice? Yarrow Moen's eyes widened as she looked towards Yi Junqing in shock. Notice what? Yi Junqing lost his confidence due to Yarrow Moen's mysteriousness and his voice clearly became much quieter. Yu Funning has a hidden guard called Fei Luan, said Yarrow Moen seriously. Don't you have one too? What's so strange about that? Stop trying to change the topic. Don't tell this prince that you had Yang Nansheng ambush this prince in order to lure out Yu Funning's hidden guard. Only a ghost would believe that. She clearly had a devastatingly beautiful face, but in Yi Juanqing's eyes, there was always a hint of slyness. This hint of slyness was enough to make Yi Juanqing doubt anything she said. The main point isn't that Yu Fanning has a hidden guard, it's who she called out her hidden guard for. Yi Juanqing, don't tell Moen that you didn't realize that Yu Fanning has feelings for you and that their feelings are very deep. Yarrow Moen lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Juanqing. His handsome face truly did have the power to captivate the soul. How could she have misjudged him back then? You're talking nonsense. How could this prince and consort Xian be together? This prince doesn't even remember seeing her before this. Also, this prince's heart. When Yarrow Moen saw Yi Juanqing's conflicted expression, she knew that she had successfully changed the topic. Also, you only have one Yarrow Morshin in your heart. Everyone knows this, otherwise you wouldn't have fallen to such a state. You don't like consort Xian, but that doesn't mean she doesn't like you. Love doesn't have to be something that both parties are willing to do. You should know this the best. Yarrow Moen's tone became heavier as her heart ached slightly. That's right, consort Xian did call out her hidden guard, but it might not have been to save this prince. Something so sudden happened, so why did she call out her hidden guard to protect herself? Taking 10,000 steps back, even if you can prove that consort Xian has feelings for this prince, so what? Yi Juanqing didn't think that this was the reason Yarrow Moen was able to convince Yang Nansheng. That was the grand head of the martial world. When had he ever done something so despicable? Getting him to cover his face was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. What? If consort Xian likes you, then it's very likely that she'll mistake Moen as a love rival. Getting rid of her will be quick. Adding on the fact that she has a hidden guard, if she decides to kill you one day, Moen won't be able to keep her life, said Yarrow Moen. You have Yin Shui, so what's there to be afraid of, scoffed Yi Juanqing. It's precisely because Yin Shui couldn't find where her hidden guard was hiding that I had Yang Nansheng help me put on this show. In reality, Yin Shui has been hiding in the shadows this entire time. You should know that the moment the hidden guard appeared, her position was also exposed. Yin Shui only needed to take a look and that Fail Wan would no longer be able to attack her, said Yarrow Moen sincerely. You finally admit that you were using this prince. Is Yang Nansheng really that willing to be ordered around by you? Said Yi Juanqing through clenched teeth. There's a saying that even if you die under a peony flower, you'll still be dissolute even as a ghost. With Moen's beauty that can captivate even the birds and beasts, it's his good fortune to be able to work for Moen. Yarrow Moen stroked her own face in great pleasure, then gave Yi Juanqing a brilliant smile. What a shameless fellow. This prince will break off all relations with him. Yi Juanqing couldn't stand Yarrow Moen's extreme narcissism and left in a huff. As Yarrow Moen watched Yi Juanqing's figure gradually disappear into the distance, she put away her playful expression and sighed softly with a solemn expression. Juanqing, forgive Moen for not being able to tell you the truth. In your past life, Moen made you suffer so much for that beast. In this life, Moen will only do it for you. In the desolate and cold Pure Flowers Palace, Yarrow Sulwan was leaning dejectedly against the chaise lounge. Her long and narrow eyes were focused on her glossy and plump nails. The bright red color of cardamom reflected in her eyes were like two clusters of flames that flickered between bright and dim. Your Highness, the noon meal is ready. How much do you want to eat? Mingyu carefully walked over to Yarrow Sulwan's side and spoke softly. After the incident at Jade Lake, Yarrow Sulwan shut herself in Pure Flowers Palace for a full half a month. In this half a month, she clearly didn't eat or drink much and didn't sleep at all. She spent most of her time sitting on the chaise lounge. Mingyu didn't know what she was thinking. She only knew that sometimes she cried and sometimes she laughed. She seemed crazy. Yarrow Yu is only a 4 or 5-year-old child. How did he manage to find Jade Lake? How could Su Muzi have allowed Yarrow Yu to leave Guan Osprey Palace by himself? If Yarrow Yu wasn't alone, then who had left him at Jade Lake? What was their motive? This consort clearly didn't push Yarrow Yu, nor did I force him, so why did he jump into the water? Why did Su Muzi have to appear at this time? Then Yarrow Moen, His Majesty, and father also came earlier than expected. The most suspicious thing was why Yarrow Yu wasn't found in Jade Lake. Was the current really that fast? Was it really just an accident, or had someone deliberately arranged it? And who was the person who arranged it? Yarrow Sulwan's dark eyes were like owls as she muttered to herself. She had been asking herself these questions over and over again these past few days, but she hadn't gotten an answer. Your Highness, your health is important. Why don't you eat first? Ming Yu looked sympathetically at this once glorious imperial Gui Fei. She couldn't help but sigh. The women in the inner palace might appear dignified and graceful in the eyes of outsiders, but in reality, they were just like people drinking water. Yarrow Moen. Yarrow Sulwan's eyes widened, then she got up and left Pure Flower's palace. Seeing this, Ming Yu didn't say anything and just silently followed behind her. Chapter 102. All of you, leave. From the moment Yarrow Sulwan stepped into Guan Osprey Palace, her eyes had been fixed on Yarrow Moen as if she wanted to pierce 2 holes in her body. Niang Niang. Ming Yu naturally had nothing to say and slowly left the palace. However, Ting Yu was still worried and looked towards Yarrow Moen. Second older sister definitely wants to have a secret conversation with Wan. Stand guard at the door and don't let anyone eavesdrop. Hurry and go. Yarrow Moen patted Ting Yu and nodded firmly. Seeing Yarrow Moen agree, Ting Yu turned and left the main hall, closing the palace doors tightly as she left. Second older sister has gotten thinner these past few days. Wan's heart aches just looking at you. Yarrow Moen gracefully walked to Yarrow Sulwan's side. Her soft and smooth hand was just about to caress Yarrow Sulwan's face when Yarrow Sulwan abruptly grabbed her wrist. Why did you frame Ben Gong? Yarrow Sulwan gritted her teeth as she questioned, her eyes filled with a bloodthirsty coldness. The force in her hand gradually increased. That day, Su Muzi and Yarrow Yu had definitely entered the palace with Yarrow Moen's permission. If this entire matter had been premeditated, then other than Yarrow Moen, she couldn't think of a second person. Even if Yarrow Moen was a fool, Wan doesn't know what second older sister is talking about. Yarrow Moen looked towards Yarrow Sulwan with a wronged expression. That sinister expression was as cold as the cold palace. Don't put on such a pitiful expression in front of Ben Gong. Ben Gong isn't his majesty and won't fall for this. Yarrow Sulwan roared fiercely and tightened her grip on Yarrow Moen. Then what does second older sister like to fall for? As long as second older sister says it, Wan will definitely act it out perfectly for you. Yarrow Moen's cherry lips curved slightly, her smile deep and treacherous. You. What did you say? Yarrow Sulwan looked towards Yarrow Moen in disbelief. This wasn't something an idiot would say. Wan's pronunciation is perfect. If second older sister didn't hear it clearly, you should call an imperial doctor to see if you're deaf. As Yarrow Moen spoke, she abruptly pulled her wrist out from Yarrow Sulwan's grip. Her eyes were like ice as she snorted disdainfully. You. Who are you? You're not Yarrow Moen. Yarrow Sulwan was shocked by Yarrow Moen's reaction and immediately walked in front of Yarrow Moen to question her sternly. Second older sister's words are really funny. You and I have lived under the same roof for more than 10 years, yet you actually say that I'm not Yarrow Moen? Then Wan wants to ask second older sister, then who am I? Yarrow Moen's elegant brows lifted slightly as she looked playfully at the deathly pale Yarrow Sulwan. Her voice was soft but cold to the bone. Yarrow Moen is a fool, everyone knows that, but you're not. You're Yarrow Morshin. You reincarnated in another body. You're alive. The events of that night by the lake suddenly resurfaced in her mind. Yarrow Sulwan was so frightened by her own thoughts that she took several steps back. The finger that was pointing at Yarrow Moen trembled incessantly like a loom. Reincarnate into another body? Had second sister been poisoned by Mai to the point where not even a trace of her was left? How could he have such a ridiculous thought? Great. Wan admits that I am the eldest sister. Go tell father, tell his majesty, see what reaction they have. Wan guarantees that they will have the same thoughts as Wan right now. That second older sister has gone crazy beyond cure. Yarrow Moen sneered as she looked towards Yarrow Sulwan, her eyes filled with contempt and disdain. Back then, she had been thinking of familial love and hadn't guarded against Yarrow Sulwan at all. That was why she had fallen for those little tricks of hers. Now, she only needed to curl her finger and she could make Yarrow Sulwan wish she was dead. You're not stupid. Since when? When did this start? Yarrow Sulwan rushed in front of Yarrow Moen in shock and demanded fiercely. Let Wana think. When did it start? Oh, that's right. It was when Do Xianglan had Jiao Momo send Moen to Happy Spring Courtyard that something happened. It should have been at that time, because from that time on, Moen understood one thing from the bottom of her heart. Some people should pay the price for the things they do. Yarrow Moen's eyes were as cold as ice. Every word was like a sharp blade stabbing into Yarrow Sulwan's heart. The sudden pain made Yarrow Sulwan unable to bear it and she revealed a pained expression. You actually tricked everyone? Then Jiao Momo's death, you being made a consort, and Mother's death, it's all related to you. It's definitely related to you. When Mother died, you were at Bamboo Wish Pavilion. Isn't that right? Yarrow Sulwan roared, her eyes scarlet red. Other than this, it seems that there are still some things second older sister hasn't said. For example, Jade Lake this time, and The Matter with the Saffron last time, they were both songs that Moen had meticulously arranged. Oh right, there's also White Brow, that swindler, that was also specially prepared by Moen for second older sister. I wonder if second older sister likes it. Yarrow Moen's smile was as gentle as water, as brilliant as a flower. In Yarrow Sulwan's eyes, that beautiful face was as frightening as an Azura from the lowest level of hell. Yarrow Moen, why did you do this? You vicious woman. You're completely devoid of conscience. Mother, child. Sulwan will get revenge for you right now. Yarrow Sulwan charged at Yarrow Moen like crazy, wanting to strangle her snow-white neck. However, Yarrow Moen pushed her to the ground. Only you have mother. Only you have a child. Yarrow Sulwan, you should know better than anyone else why I did this. Your mother deserved it. Even if she died 10 times, it wouldn't be enough to repay the debt she owed. As for your child, it was you who was blinded by greed. For the throne of Empress, you sacrificed his life. Even a vicious tiger won't eat its cubs. You're even worse than an animal. Yarrow Moen walked to Yarrow Sulwan's side step by step. Her icy eyes emitted a cold light and the vicious air around her made Yarrow Sulwan crawl backwards. That was your scheme. You were the one who said that child was Yarrow Morshin's reincarnation. Yarrow Sulwan retorted in a panic, her eyes filled with fear. So what if it's eldest sister's reincarnation? Why do you hate eldest sister so much that you can't tolerate the child in your stomach? Why? Yarrow Moen's clear eyes turned cold and she abruptly grabbed Yarrow Sulwan's clothes. Her voice was cold and hollow, like the demonic voice of hell, piercing Yarrow Sulwan's eardrums. You know? Impossible. This is impossible. Go away. Yarrow Sulwan looked at Yarrow Moen in shock and abruptly pushed her away. She staggered to her feet and rushed to the palace gates. Where does second older sister want to go? You wouldn't be stupid enough to tell His Majesty, right? Yarrow Moen slowly got up and glanced at Yarrow Sulwan's figure out of the corner of her eyes. Why not? You pretended to be crazy and deceived His Majesty. You've committed the most heinous crime. Yarrow Sulwan did her best to calm herself down, but her trembling hands couldn't hide the fear and terror she was currently feeling. Who said Wana pretended to be crazy? Second older sister, what's wrong? Did you hear something you shouldn't have heard that's why you're this scared? Then it's best to forget about it or else you'll have nightmares at night. Yarrow Moen slowly walked towards Yarrow Sulwan with an innocent and harmless smile on her face. She didn't seem the slightest bit different from usual. You don't plan on admitting it. Yarrow Sulwan understood what Yarrow Moen wanted to express and asked fiercely. Admit what? Second older sister is talking more and more nonsense. Ting Yu. Quickly go find His Majesty and tell him that second older sister's illness isn't light. Yarrow Moen suddenly raised her voice and shouted. Yarrow Moen, what you owe Ben Gong will definitely get it back. Let's wait and see. Yarrow Sulwan forcefully suppressed the fear in her heart and shouted fiercely. Then she pushed the door open and left Guan Osprey Palace. When Ting Yu saw Yarrow Sulwan walk past her with violent steps, She immediately jogged into the main hall and looked towards Yarrow Moen worriedly. Your Highness, Consort Li seems to be very angry. What exactly happened just now? It's not that big of a deal, it's just letting Yarrow Sulwan know the truth. Yarrow Moen sighed lightly, then turned around and sat back down at the table. You're saying? She knows that you're not stupid? She also knows that everything that happened before was arranged by you? Including Big Madam's death? Ting Yu looked towards Yarrow Moen in shock. Including Do Xianglan's death. Yarrow Moen casually picked up the teacup, then lifted the lid with her jade fingers and fiddled with the tender leaves floating on the surface. Your Highness, how could you tell her? This is bad, Consort Li won't let you off. She'll definitely use some sinister method to harm your Highness. What to do? Ting Yu was extremely anxious. She clasped her hands together and paced back and forth. Chapter 103. Master, this servant will refill your tea. Ting Yu looked towards Yarrow Moen in realization and immediately walked over to the table. She picked up the teapot and waited on Yarrow Moen with a smile. As Yi Junqing was still brooding over the fact that he had been used, the atmosphere during dinner was unusually heavy. When he realized that Yarrow Moen wouldn't apologize or thank him, Yi Junqing felt even more indignant. I won't let this matter rest. Yarrow Moen was completely baffled by Yi Junqing's abrupt words. Just as Yarrow Moen was about to speak, a light breeze suddenly brushed past and a beautiful scenery appeared in front of her. Putting aside her personal grudges, Yarrow Moen had to admit that Yang Nanxing's beauty was universally shocking. With just a casual movement, he could turn all living things upside down. Although her soul couldn't be said to be intoxicated, her heart still moved a few times. He's talking to me, isn't that right, little junior brother? Yang Nanxing smiled evilly. When he looked towards Yi Junqing, his eyes were bright and sparkling. Phut, cough cough. Sorry, you guys can continue. Yarrow Moen choked on Yang Nanxing's little junior brother, especially the way he was looking at Yi Junqing. Those who didn't know better would definitely think that there was some sort of ambiguous relationship between the two. Who's your little junior brother? Call me Prince. Prince. Yi Junqing's face turned red as he tried to correct himself. Little junior brother, Prince, don't get angry. Look at your sinister expression, it's not pretty anymore. Yang Nanxing reached out to smooth out Yi Junqing's furrowed brows, but he was almost sent flying by Yi Junqing's palm. Don't think that this matter will end like this. Give your current hidden guard to this prince. When Yi Junqing finished speaking, he saw that Yang Nanxing's smile had stiffened and his eyes were filled with grief and indignation. You get stained by the company you keep. Are you robbing me? What hidden guard do I have? Yang Nanxing glared at Yarrow Moen bitterly. Yarrow Moen truly felt wronged. She hadn't said anything at all. Other than Yin Shui, don't you still have wind, rain, thunder, and lightning? Don't think that this prince doesn't know. Yi Junqing was deeply aware of his lack of power, and with so many spies around, he couldn't personally investigate the matter with Nurse Sun and the others. Where did you put the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning? Yang Nanxing ignored Yi Junqing and turned to glare angrily at Yarrow Moen. If the wind, rain, thunder, and lightning were in the Imperial Palace, Yi Junqing should be able to sense it. It's none of your business. Are they your people? Yarrow Moen shrugged disapprovingly. You gave her the elements of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. Are you stupid? Yi Junqing picked up on the clues and instantly became excited. It's all for the sake of getting Yin Shui back. Yang Nanxing slapped his forehead in annoyance. He was extremely regretful. Then what about Yin Shui? Hope reignited in Yi Junqing's eyes. Yin Shui. Yarrow Moen didn't miss this opportunity to call out Yin Shui. Master, Yin Shui is here. A beautiful appearance had already declared everything. Yi Junqing glanced at Yang Nanxing pitifully. His heart finally calmed down. Even Yang Nanxing, who only knew how to take advantage of others, had fallen into Yarrow Moen's hands. He had only been used a little, so it didn't seem like a big deal. It's nothing. You can leave now. Yarrow Moen dismissed Yin Shui with a wave of her hand, then put down the bowl and chopsticks. She walked lightly to the chaise lounge and picked up Fluffy before walking back to the two of them. It's rare for you eldest Marshall brother and junior Marshall brother to get together, so Moen will make room for you to reminisce. Of course, it's not limited to reminiscing, you can do anything. No one will come at this time. Yarrow Moen glanced meaningfully at Yi Junqing and Yang Nansheng, then walked into the bedroom with a playful smile. Only when Yarrow Moen disappeared from the main hall did Yi Junqing and Yang Nansheng understand the meaning behind Yarrow Moen's words. They immediately gnashed their teeth in anger. The next day, Yarrow Moen was feeling the movements in Fluffy's stomach when Yin Shui suddenly appeared and placed a letter in Yarrow Moen's hands. The assassin was definitely not a coincidence. Prince's life is in danger. Fu is willing to help Prince leave the Imperial Palace. I hope that Prince will not refuse. Once Prince succeeds, this grievance will definitely be cleared. 3 days from now, at the western outskirts of the Imperial City, I will see you there, Yu Funning. A faint smile appeared on Yarrow Moen's lips as she looked at the letter in her hands. In the end, Yu Funning had still taken the bait. She had spent quite a bit of effort on this letter. Even if Yi Junqing didn't have any intention of leaving the Imperial Palace, it was clear that he would still go and ask about the words grievance will definitely be cleared. As for what would happen next, Yu Funning was definitely planning something. This consort wants to see Yu Qing tonight. Go make the preparations. Yarrow Moen carefully put away the letter and ordered coldly. Yes. Yin Shui accepted the order and withdrew. The bedroom was completely silent. Yarrow Moen slowly sat back down on the bed, her jade-like fingers stroking Fluffy's bulging stomach. She knew that Yu Funning had feelings for Yi Junqing, but she didn't know that it was this deep. It was so deep that she would disregard all consequences for him. The current Yu Funning was just like herself back then. In order to help Yi Hongyi ascend to the throne, she had even abandoned her basic principles. She clearly knew that Yi Junqing was more suited for the throne, but she still used all kinds of methods to suppress Yi Junqing. Fluffy, how should I treat Yu Funning? Yarrow Moen sighed softly as she began to ponder. The moonlight was thick and the night was as cool as water. The crescent moon hung in the branches like a bow. Yarrow Moen lay on Yin Shui's back as she quietly listened to the sound of the wind whistling past her ears. Yin Shui only used the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to carry her from the Imperial Palace to Pleasant Arrival Inn. Master, Yu Qing has arrived. Yarrow Moen wore plain clothes as she sat at the table in the #1 room. Her elegant face was hidden behind a black veil, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. The door creaked open, and a middle-aged man cautiously looked around before walking in. You're the person who wanted to see this old man? Where's that letter? Give it to me. The refined voice contained a trace of anger. Yu Qing sat upright in front of Yarrow Moen, his eyes filled with enmity. When Yin Shui spread the letter in front of Yu Qing, he knew that a great disaster was about to befall them. Now wasn't the time to investigate his daughter. Saving his own life was more important. Lord Yu has always been intelligent, how could you be so muddled now? That letter is so important, how could Jingxin possibly give it to you? Yarrow Moen liked the name Jingxin, so she casually referred to herself. You. Who exactly are you? What do you want? Yu Qing frowned as he questioned her. Jingxin feels that this isn't something Lord Yu should be concerned about. Actually, Jingxin was quite impressed by Consort Xian's fearlessness. Yu Funning was probably the only person in this world who dared to commit such a heinous crime. She clearly knew that His Majesty was thinking of ways to kill the esteemed prince, yet she was able to write words that would help the esteemed prince escape his evil clutches. Furthermore, she seemed to be very clear about the cause of the Empress's death. This was a great taboo for His Majesty. Based on His Majesty's suspicious personality, as long as this letter falls into His Majesty's hands, the entire Yu estate will definitely not be able to escape the fate of having their possessions confiscated and their entire clan exterminated. What do you think of my analysis? Yarrow Moen spoke calmly, her clear eyes calm and unperturbed. Speak. What do you want? Yu Qing exhaled heavily and leaned back in his chair. He had been an official for more than 10 years, so he naturally understood Yi Hongyi's personality. Anyone he suspected didn't have a good ending. The Empress was the best example. As for him, he was just the Minister of Rights. Simple. Take the national treasury's silver and bring Yu Funning to another country. Yarrow Moen's expression was solemn as she spoke resolutely. It's that simple. What do you get out of this? Yu Qing couldn't believe what he was hearing. This kind of condition was definitely outside of Yu Qing's expectations. It could be said that he was extremely fortunate. He had originally thought that he would be completely controlled by the other party. In 2 days, Yu Funning will naturally appear in the western suburbs. At that time, Lord Yu will know what to do. If things don't develop as Jing Xin expects, then I'm sorry, Jing Xin will not hesitate to hand over the letter to His Majesty. Yarrow Moen didn't explain what benefits she would get because in the near future, everyone would see the benefits she would get, including Yu Qing. But everyone was curious and Yu Qing was no exception. Chapter 104. Does Daren agree to Jing Xin's conditions? Yarrow Moen was shocked. She had originally thought that crippling Yu Qing would be a heavy blow to Yi Hongyi, but she hadn't expected that the national treasury would be empty. However, Yu Qing's betrayal would definitely make Yi Hongyi feel like he was being hunched over a bow in a cup, making him even more suspicious. This old man doesn't seem to have a choice. Yu Qing's voice contained a bit of resentment. Yarrow Moen smiled faintly. After returning to Guan Osprey Palace, Yarrow Moen imitated Yi Juanqing's handwriting and wrote a reply to Yu Funning. Don't leave without seeing Junqing. Originally, there was no need to do this, but Yarrow Moen was afraid that Yu Funning would give Yi Junqing some more hints in the next few days, so she decided to just write a reply to put her mind at ease and avoid any more complications. At the dining table, Yi Junqing continued to eat until he couldn't take it anymore. Then he put down his bowl and chopsticks and looked towards Yarrow Moen. Is there gold on this prince's face? Does it shine? What are you looking at? Yi Junqing asked righteously. Moen is thinking, that night. Nothing happened between you and Yang Nansheng, right? Yarrow Moen's pure little face revealed a meaningful smile as she spoke in all seriousness. When Yi Junqing heard this, he immediately frowned. I dare you to say that again. I'm just joking, why are you being so serious? Yarrow Moen smiled lightly when she sensed Yi Juanqing's anger. She then put away her smile and looked towards him seriously. Moen, shouldn't I give her a chance? Yarrow Moen muttered to herself. She felt a little sour in her heart. Yu Funning had acted so righteously for Yi Juanqing's sake, shouldn't she get a chance to confess her feelings? What chance? To who? Yi Junqing looked towards Yarrow Moen suspiciously. If there was a woman who was willing to give up her life for you, would you give her a chance? Yarrow Moen had never looked at Yi Junqing so seriously before. Her gaze made his hair stand on end. This prince only has more sheen in his heart, you know that. Also, you don't seem like a woman who would give up her life no matter how you look at it. Yi Junqing reiterated his stance. In this life, the next life, and the life after that, he only had Yarrow Morshin in his heart. This was a fact that no one could change. Even if Moen were to risk her life one day, it definitely wouldn't be for you. Nansheng is tens of thousands of times more powerful than you. Don't flatter yourself here. Forget it, even if I give you a chance, it will only make you sad. What's the point? Yarrow Moen immediately slammed the table and stood up, then left angrily. Why are you angry? Was it a crime to tell the truth? Is that a crime? Yi Junqing felt incredibly wronged by Yarrow Moen's sudden outburst. Inside Fragrant Steps Pavilion, Yu Funning clutched the letter in her hands as tears streamed down her face. She had finally taken the right step. In the future, no matter where she went, she would never let go of Yi Juanqing's hand. If they lived, they would live together. If they died, they would die together. Your Highness, have you really decided? Have you thought of the consequences? Qian Shi asked nervously as she looked at the excited Yu Funning. Qian Shi, Fu Ning doesn't want to waste her life. Stop trying to persuade me. Yu Funning knew what Qian Shi wanted to say, but she had already sacrificed the best half of her life for the Yu estate and for her father. Right now, she just wanted to be with the person she loved. That was enough. Since Your Highness has decided, Qian Shi won't say anything more. However, Chen Shi wants to leave with your highness. No matter where you go, Chen Shi won't leave your highness, said Chen Shi resolutely. All right. We'll leave together. Chen Shi, go help this consort pack up. The more the better. This journey will be difficult, so there will definitely be a lot of silver. Yu Fanning wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes as she carefully put the letter away. 2 days later, when Yu Fanning arrived at the western suburbs filled with hope and anticipation, the person she had been waiting for was actually her father. Ninga, are you really that heartless to abandon father? When Yu Fanning saw Yu Qing's aged face, tears streamed down her face in shock. Father, I'm sorry. Ninga really doesn't want to miss him. Yu Fanning knelt on the ground and sobbed uncontrollably. Forget it, there are some things that we can't control. Father has already taken care of everything. Let's leave together and never return. When Yu Qing walked over to pull Yu Fanning up, he suddenly stuffed a bone-softening pill into Yu Fanning's mouth. Father! Yu Fanning looked towards Yu Qing in shock. He won't be coming. In reality, he didn't even receive your letter. 2 days ago, someone used your letter to threaten father. The condition was that father would take you away from the imperial city and leave Great Chu. Chen Shi, help young miss into the carriage. Yu Qing used 2 days to transfer all of the money, including the little silver left in Great Chu's treasury. At this time, he was only driving 3 carriages to the western suburbs to pick up his daughter. Impossible. Father, wait for him. Ninga is begging you. Wait for him. Tears rolled down her face like pearls from a broken necklace. Yu Fanning knew that her father wasn't lying to her. Ever since she was young, her father had never lied to her. However, she had clearly received Yi Juanqing's letter and she recognized the handwriting. Other than him, no one else could write such bold and forceful words. Master. Chen Shi's voice was heavy with sobs. She hadn't expected this kind of ending. Ari, this is the will of the heavens. Help young miss into the carriage. Yu Qing looked at his daughter with heartache as he spoke decisively. They were running for their lives. If they were discovered by His Majesty, it would be too late. Chen Shi had no choice but to help Yu Fanning into the carriage. No. Chen Shi, I beg you, let me stay. I want to wait for him. Yu Fanning wanted to break free from Chen Shi's grip, but her body didn't have any strength. Young miss, if what master said was true, then the esteemed prince wouldn't have appeared. We've already escaped from the imperial palace and master has already made his decision. We definitely can't return to the imperial palace. If you and His Highness are fated, you'll naturally meet again, comforted Chen Shi painstakingly. Why? Why did it have to be like this? I just wanted to live for myself once, but in the end, this was the result. Why didn't you give me a chance? I just want a chance. Yu Fanning cried her heart out. She was heartbroken. Chen Shi was speechless. Other than staying silent, she didn't know what to say. Just who is it? Just who is controlling everything? Even if I go to the ends of the earth, I, Yu Fanning, swear to the heavens that I won't let this matter rest. Yu Fanning left Great Chu Imperial City full of resentment. This resentment had accumulated over the years and finally turned into a malignant tumor. At that time, it had almost taken Yarrow Moen's life. Yu Qing and Yu Fanning's disappearance was a huge blow to Yi Hongyi. He had always treated Yu Qing well, but he hadn't expected that he could leave just like that, but he'd actually run away with the money from the imperial treasury. Just like that, a gap was opened in the trust between monarch and official. Yi Hongyi suddenly felt that no matter what, the only person he could trust was Yarrow Moen. In Soul Sand Garden, Yarrow Moen watched as the soul sand tree that represented Literati Star rotted for no reason. Her heart ached so much that she started to cry. Your Majesty, it's WN who didn't take good care of them. I'm sorry. Yarrow Moen sobbed as she wiped her tears. She stood in front of Yi Hongyi like a child who had done something wrong. However, her tears would never stop flowing. Just as she wiped them away, they overflowed again. It's not WN's fault. Don't cry, Jin's heart is breaking just by looking at you. It's a bad root, so it's normal for it to rot. In a bit, Jin will order an Bingshan to dig it out so that WN won't be sad. Let's go, Jin will accompany you back to Guan Osprey Palace. Yi Hongyi pulled Yarrow Moen into his arms and carried her out of Soul Sand Garden. The wanted posters for Yu Qing and Yu Funning had already been sent out to all of Great Chu at the fastest speed possible. No matter what, Yi Hongyi had to capture them. When they reached the Imperial Garden, Yarrow Moen noticed a little eunuch hurriedly run to Bingshan's side. After Bingshan nagged Yi Hongyi for a bit, Yi Hongyi ordered Tingyu to send her back to Guan Osprey Palace while he strode towards the imperial study. Yin Shui. Yarrow Moen only summoned Yin Shui when Yi Hongyi's figure disappeared from her line of sight. This subordinate is here. As a hidden guard, if Yin Shui's concealment skills were said to be second, then no one would dare say they were first. Is there any news from Ben Lei? Yi Hongyi had left in a hurry, so the first thing that came to Yarrow Moen's mind was Yu Qing. Your Highness, don't worry, Ben Lei has already sent news. The people he sent out have already met up with Yu Qing and the others. There's absolutely no chance of anything going wrong, replied Yin Shui truthfully. All right, you can leave. Yarrow Moen sighed lightly, then her lips curved into a slight smile. Whether it was Huan Heng or Yu Qing, they were both gifts she had prepared for Yi Junqing. Chapter 105. You could say that. You still haven't answered my question. Yarrow Moen, do you know that Yu Qing took a considerable amount of silver from the national treasury when he left? Everything you've done has already shaken Great Chu's foundation. Why are you doing this? Yi Junqing's voice was cold and his eyes were filled with anger. Prince should know what you've done. Do you still need Moen to explain? Every time she heard Yi Junqing defend the court and Yi Hongyi, Yarrow Moen felt like her crimes were unforgivable. Everything that had happened back then was still vivid in her mind. She owed this man far too much. Don't tell this prince that everything you've done has been for this prince. Yi Junqing lifted his brows. He wanted to see how Yarrow Moen was going to pin the blame on him this time. Prince, take a look at this letter first. Yarrow Moen's expression was solemn as she handed the letter to Yi Junqing. Yi Junqing took the letter in confusion. The contents of the letter shocked him greatly. Did Yu Funning really write this? Yi Junqing frowned as he asked suspiciously. What else could it be? Just based on this letter, His Majesty has more than enough reason to confiscate the Yu estate. At that time, Prince and Consort Xian's affair would be exposed to the world. Prince should know why His Majesty left you in the Imperial Palace, right? With this reason, it would be extremely difficult for the generals in court to protect you. Moen knows that Prince has long since stopped caring about life and death, but Prince really doesn't care about being punished for adultery. Even if Prince doesn't care, what about Consort Xian? Yu Qing? Yu estate's entire family? How innocent are they? Does Prince not care about any of this? Yarrow Moen's words left Yi Junqing speechless. This prince didn't know that Consort Xian would write something like this. Yi Junqing really wanted to explain but found that his words were powerless in front of Yarrow Moen. Not knowing doesn't mean it didn't happen. Prince owes Moen a favor for this matter. If Prince has nothing else, Moen will take her leave, said Yarrow Moen coldly before leaving with Tingyu. Even after Yarrow Moen had gone far away, Yi Junqing's mind was still muddled. He had originally come to criticize and question her, so how did he end up owing her a favor instead? For a moment, Yi Junqing suddenly wondered if Yarrow Moen was living in this world specifically to counter him. It seemed like he needed to use Yarrow Moen's 8 characters to properly research a way to break it. Tingyu followed behind Mistress. Her admiration for Yarrow Moen was like an endless torrential river, like the Yellow River bursting its dike and gushing 1,000 li. She never knew that Mistress was so eloquent. Whether it was the esteemed prince who had been on the battlefield for a long time or the famous Yang Nansheng, none of them had the upper hand when it came to this. When they arrived outside Guan Osprey Palace, Liu Xing happened to run over. Liu Xing kowtows in salute to your highness. Let's talk inside. Yarrow Moen nodded slightly, then turned and stepped into the main hall. Your highness, after Madame Do made trouble that day, Master sent Steward Yarrow to thoroughly investigate Yarrow Yu. When he learned that Yarrow Yu was not his biological son, he became seriously ill. However, these days, Master ordered Steward Yarrow to find several matchmakers. According to the news from the Prime Minister's mansion, Master seemed to have the intention to marry into the fourth branch. Liu Xing reported truthfully. He's probably gone crazy from missing his son. Is there any news from Yarrow Sulwan? Yarrow Moen's gaze turned slightly cold. It would be fine if the fourth branch gave birth to a son, but if it was a daughter, who knew what kind of miserable things would happen? Perhaps she should think of a way to end all her troubles. Consort Li has locked herself up in Pure Flower's palace these past 2 days and hasn't come out at all. Her Ming Yu only goes in and out of the imperial kitchen for 3 meals a day. The rest of the time, he's in Pure Flower's palace and hasn't gone anywhere else. Liu Xing followed Yarrow Moen's instructions and gathered his own spies in the inner palace. Understood. Yarrow Moen nodded slightly. Afterwards, she dismissed Liu Xing and Ting Yu and went to the inner room to sleep. Now that she'd dealt with the 2 pillars of support, who would be next? She needed to plan carefully. At dinner, when Yi Junqing summoned Liu Shaw, Yarrow Moen couldn't help but sigh. Yi Junqing really did have a good senior brother. According to Yin Shui, after handing over the elements, there were only 4 first-rate hidden guards left in Phoenix Feather Manor and Liu Shaw was one of them. Is Prince showing off to Moen? Do you want Moen to summon Yin Shui? Yarrow Moen glanced at Liu Shaw calmly. He was dressed in black and had a handsome appearance. His face was expressionless, but the light in his eyes made it hard for others to underestimate him. Liu Shaw, withdraw. Yi Junqing had indeed wanted to show off, but he hadn't expected Yarrow Moen to steal his limelight with a single sentence. Who didn't know Yin Shui's worth? Did she need to attack him like this? Yi Junqing was very dissatisfied. This subordinate will withdraw. Liu Shaw immediately moved away after receiving the order. Yarrow Moen tried to find where Liu Shaw was hiding, but all she saw was a black shadow flash and Liu Shaw was nowhere to be found. Does Prince remember owing Moen a favor? Yarrow Moen had always yearned for good things. Even if this prince gives up my life to repay you, I won't give Liu Shaw to you. Yarrow Moen, you already have Yin Shui, elements, thunder, and lightning by your side. A man who is never content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Even greed has to have a limit. Aren't you afraid of dying from overeating? After interacting with Yarrow Moen for so long, Yi Junqing could tell what she wanted with just a single glance. At this moment, Yang Nanxing's indignant expression when he repeatedly warned him not to let Yarrow Moen trick Liu Shaw away was still fresh in his mind. Prince is too sensitive. Moen has always helped others achieve their goals and has never stolen what others like, said Yarrow Moen with a shrug. You really are modest. Yi Junqing rolled his eyes at Yarrow Moen. He didn't believe a single punctuation mark in Yarrow Moen's word. Right at this time, Liu Xing knocked on the door and entered. What is it? Yarrow Moen restrained the looseness in her eyes and asked solemnly. Replying, Your Highness, this servant just received news that Chi's Crown Prince, Feng Yihan, will arrive in Great Chu in 3 days. If it wasn't important news, Liu Xing wouldn't have interrupted his master and the esteemed prince's dinner. The onlooker sees clearly. In these past few days, Liu Xing had deeply felt that his master treated the esteemed prince differently. Although his words and expression were cold, it wasn't like that. Every time he saw Yarrow Moen stare at Yi Junqing's back, Liu Xing would feel a sense of déjà vu. That feeling was the same as when he silently stared at third Miss Liu Xing hoped that his master could be happy from the bottom of his heart. He knew that the person that could make his master happy definitely wasn't the current emperor. Feng Yihan. I understand. You can withdraw for now. Yarrow Moen waved her hand thoughtfully. After Liu Xing left, she slowly sank into contemplation. This prince has met Feng Yihan a few times. This person has a forthright personality and handles matters generously. If he ascends the throne one day, he will definitely be a benevolent ruler. Yi Junqing couldn't help but sigh in admiration when he recalled this person. If he wants to ascend the throne, he'll have to return alive first. Yarrow Moen smiled helplessly. What do you mean? Yi Junqing looked towards Yarrow Moen in confusion. Prince feels that he has a forthright personality and handles matters generously, but that's just on the surface. In reality, he's meticulous and cautious in his actions. If he wasn't like that, how could he have survived until now? Yarrow Moen shook her head lightly, a hint of pity in her eyes. What do you mean? Yi Junqing was extremely puzzled by Yarrow Moen's words. Although Feng Yihan is the eldest son and the son of Empress Qi has already passed away for many years. Right now, Imperial Consort Hua is in charge of the inner palace of Qi, and Imperial Consort Hua's son, Feng Duo, has shown his brilliance for the first time and is greatly favored by King Qi. Whether it's King Qi, Imperial Consort Hua, or even Feng Duo, they all want to depose Feng Yihan, the crown prince. For him to be able to keep his position as crown prince in such a difficult situation, it's clear that his wisdom is extraordinary. Chapter 106. With Feng Yihan going to Great Chu, doesn't that mean that Qi has changed its mind? Yi Junqing stared at Yarrow Moen's face, his heart beating uncontrollably. This scene reminded him of the time he and Mo Xin had talked about national affairs. If King Qi really wanted to establish a relationship with Great Chu, why would he send an unfavored crown prince? He doesn't need to fight on the battlefield to be able to establish a career. This kind of good thing should definitely fall into Feng Duo's hands. Yarrow Moen's voice was as calm as still water as she subconsciously twirled the chopsticks in her hand on the table. This simple action shocked Yi Junqing greatly. He was far too familiar with this action. Back then, Mo Xin would always do the same thing when she was deep in thought. Yi Junqing looked towards Yarrow Moen in astonishment as his hands slowly clenched in his sleeves. You think that His Majesty will act against Feng Yihan? Yarrow Moen was too focused that she didn't even notice the slight tremble in Yi Junqing's voice. Of course it's not His Majesty, but King Qi. This is a trick that kills 3 birds with 1 stone. If Feng Yihan dies in Great Chu, firstly, Feng Duo will naturally become the crown prince. Secondly, Great Chu will definitely have to give Qi an explanation. If they want to make peace, they will definitely have to pay compensation. Thirdly, King Qi will once again let Great Chu see his attitude in exchange for Great Chu's trust. Yarrow Moen sighed inwardly. She believed that with Feng Yihan's intelligence, he had already guessed this. She wondered what he was feeling right now. Must they make peace? There's no harm in starting a war. Yi Junqing's eyes never left Yarrow Moen. Right now, these political matters were like fleeting clouds to him. He only paid attention to Yarrow Moen and absorbed every bit of Mo Xin from her. No. That bastard Chu Morbei has been eyeing Meng Yuan for a long time. If Great Chu starts a war with Qi, he'll definitely take advantage of it to attack Meng Yuan. This will only bring harm to Great Chu. What a pity. Yarrow Moen sighed softly as she thought about this. What's a pity? When Yi Junqing saw Yarrow Moen look towards him, he immediately put away the longing in his eyes and asked this question uncomfortably. It's a pity that His Majesty wouldn't have thought of this, nor would he have taken any precautions. That's why Feng Yihan's trip doesn't bode well for him. Yarrow Moen didn't notice the change in Yi Junqing's expression as she continued to guide him. What does it have to do with this king? Every time Yarrow Moen revealed that enigmatic smile, that was when Yi Junqing was at his most vigilant. Prince has always been loyal to His Majesty. For the sake of Great Chu, you have done your utmost. But now it seems that all of that was fake, said Yarrow Moen in disappointment. What are you trying to say? Yi Junqing had always thought that Yarrow Moen didn't like his loyalty to the imperial court, but now it seemed that wasn't entirely the case. He was becoming more and more unable to understand this woman. Your Highness, don't you think that for the sake of His Majesty, for the sake of Great Chu, for the sake of the empire you've worked so hard for, you should shoulder the heavy responsibility of protecting Feng Yihan? In Yarrow Moen's opinion, Feng Yihan definitely wasn't a good person. With his forbearance and wisdom, Yarrow Moen had reason to believe that he would definitely become the new monarch of Qi. Using Feng Yihan's visit to Chu as an opportunity for Yi Junqing to establish a friendly relationship with him would only benefit Yi Junqing. In the future, Feng Yihan would definitely be a very good external aid. You really think highly of this prince. This prince can't even protect myself right now, so how would I be able to protect him? Even though Yi Junqing was reluctant to admit it, he had already made up his mind to protect Feng Yihan. It was for no other reason than that Yarrow Moen wanted the empire to be safe. It's fine if Prince doesn't want to. As long as Prince gives quicksand to Moan, you can leave Feng Yihan's matter to Moan. Yarrow Moan looked towards Yi Junqing seriously. Don't even think about it. Eat. When Yi Junqing saw the greed in Yarrow Moan's eyes, he couldn't help but feel vexed. Why did he see Morshin's shadow in this black-bellied woman? His eyes must be playing tricks on him. The next day, Yarrow Moan lazily leaned back on the chaise lounge as she pondered over how to deal with Feng Yihan. As she focused her gaze, she gently rubbed Fluffy's ears. Fluffy lay there in great enjoyment, occasionally meowing a few times to express her thanks. Reporting to Your Highness, Consort Li just left the palace to return to Prime Minister Yarrow's residence. At this time, Liu Xing rushed in and reported respectfully. Yarrow Moan gathered her thoughts when she heard this, and her lips curved into a faint smile. The current Yarrow Sulwan was isolated and helpless. She had most likely returned to Prime Minister Yarrow's residence to convince Yarrow Junting to change his mind and support her once more. Forget it, it seemed like she hadn't returned for quite some time already. If she didn't see how sick Yarrow Junting was, Yarrow Moan really wouldn't be at ease. Inside Prime Minister Yarrow's residence, Yarrow too looked at the proud Yarrow Sulwan and bowed. This old servant kowtows in salute to Your Highness Consort Li. This consort heard that Yarrow Yu, that lowly bastard, isn't father's biological son. Is that true? Yarrow Sulwan lifted her brows as she looked towards Yarrow Tu, replying, Your Highness Consort Li, this old servant has already sent people to investigate. Yarrow Yu truly isn't old master's biological son, replied Yarrow Tu respectfully. Father really is muddle-headed with age. He actually raised someone else's son for so long and even gave him a grand funeral after his death. This time, father really needs to be taught a lesson. Yarrow Sulwan harumphed coldly. For that lowly bastard, he didn't even want his own daughter anymore. He was probably regretting it to death right now. Old master fell seriously ill because of this matter. Now that he's slightly better, if Your Highness sees old master, you mustn't bring up Yarrow Yu's matter again. Yarrow too could see the disdain in Yarrow Sulwan's heart and reminded her worriedly. Don't worry, he's still this consort's father. Even if something unhappy happened in the past, this consort can just laugh it off. Where's father? Yarrow Sulwan sighed lightly. After all, she had a motive for coming here. Right now, she was just here to talk to Yarrow too, replying, Your Highness Consort Li. Old master is currently meeting with matchmaker Zhong in the side hall, replied Yarrow Tu truthfully. Understood. Take Mingyu to rest. This consort is going to see father. Yarrow Sulwan ordered coldly before turning to head towards the side hall. Behind her, Mingyu knew that Yarrow Sulwan had never believed her. However, there was still a long way to go and she had time to wait. Inside the side hall, Yarrow Junting held the 8 characters of a few young ladies from prestigious families as he pondered with a frown. Lord Prime Minister, you really have a good eye. These young ladies all come from scholarly families. They're well-educated and intelligent. This old man only wants to have a son. Yarrow Junting's voice was completely cold. In his eyes, the greatest value of a woman was to have a son. To him, whether they were young ladies from prestigious families or well-educated, they weren't important at all. Haha, these young ladies all have good looks, so they'll naturally be able to give birth to a son for the Prime Minister. Matchmaker Zhong said with a smile. Then it'll be her. Yarrow Junting handed the 8 characters he had chosen to Matchmaker Zhong without a trace of a smile on his face. This is the Li family's second young miss. There's nothing to say about her character, but the betrothal gifts are a little high. Matchmaker Zhong said tactfully. Does the Prime Minister's residence lack money? As long as she can give birth to a son for this old man will guarantee that the Li family will not have to worry about food and clothing for 3 generations. Don't worry, Lord. This commoner will do it right away. Matchmaker Zhong immediately nodded and bowed. After Matchmaker Zhong left, Yarrow Sulwan strolled in from outside the door. I heard that father is gravely ill in bed. I didn't think that he would have such thoughts. I wonder if that young Miss Li will be able to fulfill father's wishes and give this consort a younger brother. Even though they had returned to the residence to reconcile, Yarrow Sulwan was still as arrogant as ever. Her aura did not soften in the slightest. She knew her father's personality all too well. To him, a daughter was something that he could do without. Wagging her tail and begging for pity would only make him feel that she was worthless. If she wanted to be valued by him, she had to let him know how important she was. This old man kowtows in salute to consort Li Yarojunting was slightly surprised by Yarrow Sulwan's appearance. Chapter 107. Father, must you reject this consort 1,000 miles away? Could it be that father feels that bastard Yarrow Yu doesn't deserve to die? Yarrow Sulwan rebuked. Even if he didn't drown, this old man would have personally strangled him to death. When Yarrow Yu was mentioned, Yarojunting's eyes became cold. That's right. In reality, Ben Gong and father have always been of the same mind. Ben Gong might have said some things too seriously, but when people are angry, it's hard to avoid saying some things that go too far. Father wouldn't remember those angry words, right? Yarrow Sulwan tried to ease the atmosphere in the room. This old man only knows that angry words are sometimes true. Consort Li, do as you wish. This old man won't accompany you. Yarojunting didn't buy it. Just as Yarojunting was about to walk out of the room, Yarrow Sulwan's cold laughter came from behind him. Ha, father must feel that Yarrow Mo Wn, that fool, is more favored by Emperor than Ben Gong and easier to control, right? Yarrow Sulwan walked with vicious steps to the door. She reached out and closed the door tightly. Then she turned around and looked straight at Yarojunting. This old man doesn't know what you're talking about. The animal he raised since he was a child actually turned around and bit people. From the moment Yarrow Sulwan started threatening him by Jadewater Lake, Yarojunting knew that this chess piece was useless. You don't know? Then this empress will tell you clearly. Do you think that Yarrow Mo Wan is an idiot? You've been prime minister for so long and boasted that you're good at scheming and farsighted. Could it be that you can't see that there's something fishy about this? Not only is Yarrow Mo Wan not stupid, she's also sinister and cunning. She was the one who personally admitted to framing Gao Momo and seducing His Majesty. Even Mother's death and Yarrow Yu's actions at Jade Lake were her masterpieces. We were all tricked by her. She's pretending to be stupid now, but she's actually taking revenge. Taking revenge on you. Taking revenge on Ben Gong. Yarrow Sulwan's eyes were bloodshot as she shouted herself hoarse. Every time she thought about what Yarrow Mo Wan had done to her, Yarrow Sulwan really wanted to eat her flesh and drink her blood. Yarojunting looked towards Yarrow Sulwan coldly but didn't say anything. You definitely think that Ben Gong is talking nonsense, but think about it. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? How old is Yarrow Yu? How could he find Jade Lake by himself? Yarrow Sulwan tried to convince Yarojunting. It was Wn who told Ting Yu to bring him because he said he wanted to fish. A clear and childish voice rang out from behind Yarrow Sulwan. Yarrow Sulwan suddenly froze. When she turned around, she just happened to see Yarrow Moan standing behind her. Her pure eyes flickered with an indistinguishable light. You! When did you get here? Perhaps because she was too excited, Yarrow Sulwan didn't even hear the sound of the door opening. I've been here for a long time and I've been listening to second older sister. Wan doesn't understand why second older sister is saying those things, but Wan knows that second older sister doesn't like Wan anymore. However, no matter how much second older sister doesn't like Wan, I beg you not to steal father away. Wan only has father now. Yarrow Sulwan gritted her teeth as she looked at Yarrow Moan's hypocritical face. Just as Yarrow Sulwan was about to rush up and question her, she suddenly heard Yarojunting's voice. How could father not want Wan? Father only has Wan as his only daughter. Come, father will bring you to the main hall and have Yarrow too prepare something good for you. Yarojunting's voice shattered all of Yarrow Sulwan's hopes. As she watched Yarojunting leave with Yarrow Moan in his arms, Yarrow Sulwan leaned against the door dejectedly. The current her was the one who truly had nothing left. In the main hall, Yarrow Mo Wan took a jar of wine from Ting Yu's hands and handed it to Yarojunting. Father, Wan especially begged His Majesty to give this to you. I heard that it's Enuahong that's been buried for 30 years. It must be very delicious. Yarrow Mo Wan smiled brightly. Wn is still the most filial. Yarrow Ting nodded slightly and took the home. During dinner, when Yarrow Mo Wan saw Yarrow Ting drink the home, the smile on her face became even brighter. Although the home had been bestowed by His Majesty, the rootless water inside had been given to Yarrow Ting as a filial gift. Rootless water, as the name implied, was rootless water. If Yarrow Ting wanted a son, he would have to wait for his next life. It wasn't that she, Yarrow Mo Wan, was ruthless, but Yarrow Ting really wasn't fit to be a father. Even if he gave birth to a son, he would only become a tool for him to manipulate. Yarrow Sulwan had suffered a setback at the Prime Minister Fu, so she naturally needed to vent. So when Yarrow Mo Wan stepped into Guan Osprey Palace, she wasn't surprised to see Yarrow Sulwan sitting there with a vicious expression. All of you, withdraw. Yarrow Mo Wan put away her smile and waved for Liu Xing and Ting Yu to withdraw. After knocking on the door, Yarrow Sulwan rushed in front of Yarrow Moan with large strides and fiercely grabbed Yarrow Moan's clothes. Yarrow Mo Wan, you think father cares about you? Wrong. Father doesn't care about anyone. If it wasn't for his tacit approval, that lowly mother of yours wouldn't have died. It's him. Without waiting for Yarrow Sulwan to finish speaking, Yarrow Moan abruptly raised her hand and gave Yarrow Sulwan a fierce slap. Is Ben Gong's mother someone you have the right to wantonly curse? Yarrow Sulwan, don't forget that Ben Gong is a Guifei and you're just a consort. You're right, Ben Gong knows that Yarrow Ting only has himself in his heart and knows how he treats mother, so Ben Gong doesn't plan on letting him off. However, compared to him, Ben Gong hates you even more. Yarrow Mo Wan's cold eyes shot towards Yarrow Sulwan like sharp blades, causing Yarrow Sulwan to feel a chill from the bottom of her heart. What? You want to tell Yarrow Ting? Go. Ben Gong can make a bet with you. If Yarrow Ting still believes half a word of yours, Ben Gong will immediately cut off his head and give it to you. Yarrow Mo Wan said each word coldly. Why? Ben Gong has wronged a lot of people, but Ben Gong has never done anything to harm you. Yarrow Sulwan looked at Yarrow Mo Wan in shock. The current Yarrow Mo Wan was like the king of hell. Yarrow Sulwan couldn't imagine where Yarrow Mo Wan's bloodthirsty hatred came from. That's because you disdain to bother with a fool. The thorn in your side is someone else. Ben Gong is collecting a debt from you on behalf of that person. Yarrow Sulwan, do you know who that person is? Yarrow Mo Wan walked towards Yarrow Sulwan step by step, the pressure from her body forcing Yarrow Sulwan to step back. Who is it? Yarrow Sulwan swallowed hard as the scene of Yarrow Mo Shin's death and Zhong's badly mangled corpse appeared in her mind. You remember now, right? I've already seen those 3 words on your face. Yarrow Mo Wan slowly bent down, her clear and harmless eyes staring at Yarrow Sulwan's pale face. Her lips hooked into a cold smile. Yarrow Mo Shin? Yarrow Sulwan blurted out these 3 words. So the thorn in second older sister's side is eldest sister. Yarrow Mo Wan suddenly opened her mouth, the smile on her face causing Yarrow Sulwan to tremble with fear. You know the cause of Yarrow Mo Shin's death. Impossible. This is impossible. Who told you? Who was it? Was it Your Majesty? No. Why would His Majesty say that? Your Majesty. Right at this time, Ting Yu's voice came from outside the door. This servant kowtows in salute to Your Majesty. When Yarrow Mo Wan heard this, she quickly put away the hatred in her eyes and knocked her head against the corner of the table. Yarrow Mo Wan didn't use much strength, only a light kowtow. However, there were still bruises on her forehead. Yarrow Mo Wan, what are you doing? Yarrow Sulwan looked towards Yarrow Mo Wan in confusion. At this time, Yi Hongyi had already pushed open the door and entered. Woo-woo. Second older sister, sorry, Wan didn't mention eldest sister on purpose. Wan didn't know that second older sister didn't like eldest sister. Yarrow Mo Wan's tears fell like rain, leaving 2 long streaks on her cheeks. You. What nonsense are you saying? Your Majesty. Yarrow Sulwan finally understood Yarrow Moan's intentions and immediately wanted to refute, but she saw Yi Hongyi rush to Yarrow Moan's side and lovingly caress the bruise on Yarrow Moan's forehead. When his dark eyes fell on her, They were filled with hostility. Chapter 108. Second older sister. Are you saying that WN is lying? As long as you admit that you slapped yourself and that you really did push WN into the corner of the table, WN will beg your majesty not to hit you. Yarrow Moen wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes as she looked towards Yarrow Sulwan angrily. Your majesty. Yarrow Sulwan didn't expect Yarrow Moen to be so sinister. However, could she refute now? Especially when she saw the murderous intent in Yi Hongyi's eyes, she knew that she had no other way out. Out of respect for WN Jin can forgive you, but you have to tell the truth. Yi Hongyi's voice was cold and his eyes were sharp like awls. Different from that pair of ice-cold eyes, Yi Hongyi's hand on Yarrow Moen's forehead was so gentle that it almost drove Yarrow Sulwan crazy. This concubine is guilty. I shouldn't have attacked Yarrow Fei, and even more shouldn't have slapped myself to frame Yarrow Fei. I beg your majesty to have mercy, this concubine won't dare to do it again. Yarrow Sulwan had never hated Yarrow Moen as much as she did right now. Her hands that were pressed against the ground fiercely clawed at the ground. Her fingertips that were about to dig into the cracks in the stone hurt, but Yarrow Sulwan didn't seem to care in the slightest. She only said each word as if she was crying and complaining. Your majesty, second older sister didn't hit WN on purpose. Please don't punish her, all right? Yarrow Mo Wan raised a hand to wipe her tears. Her eyes were sparkling and clear, causing Yi Hongyi's heart to ache when he saw this. Why aren't you thanking Yarrow Fei? Yi Hongyi glanced at Yarrow Sulwan in disgust, then helped Yarrow Moen to sit at the table. This concubine, thanks Yarrow Fei. Yarrow Sulwan clenched her teeth. Extreme hatred welled up in her heart, but right now, she could only endure. As long as second older sister is more honest in the future, you'll still be WAN's good second older sister. WAN helps second older sister up. When Yarrow Moen was about to get up, Yi Hongyi hugged her dotingly. You can leave now. Don't come to Guan Osprey Palace for no reason. Yi Hongyi's cold voice contained a gloomy warning. As he spoke, his gaze fell on Yarrow Moen, gentle as water. Yarrow Sulwan didn't argue and hastily left Guan Osprey Palace. When she turned around, her eyes were bloodshot. She would make Yarrow Moen pay for what she did today, she swore. After Yarrow Sulwan left, Yi Hongyi stroked Yarrow Moen's forehead, his heart aching. Does it hurt? With your majesty accompanying WAN won't feel any pain. Seeing the worry in Yi Hongyi's eyes, Yarrow Moen believed that his concern came from the bottom of his heart. In this instant, Yarrow Moen suddenly felt that Yi Hongyi was truly very pitiful. In this world, perhaps only an idiot wouldn't arouse his wariness, and only an idiot would be able to obtain his sincerity. But if it was an idiot, what use would this sincerity be? Then I will continue to hold WN like this and never let go. Yi Hongyi's lower jaw pressed against Yarrow Moen's shoulder, his handsome face pressed against her soft and pink cheek. A faint fragrance lingered in his nose. Yi Hongyi discovered that a certain part of his body had started to stir. In front of Yarrow Mo Wan, his willpower was close to zero. This younger brother kowtows in salute to your majesty. When Yi Junqing walked in, he just happened to see this scene. When he noticed the unbridled greed in Yi Hongyi's eyes, his gaze darkened and a strange feeling welled up in his heart. Ever since he'd entered Guan Osprey Palace, he'd seen this kind of scene countless times, but he'd never felt this conflicted before. Cough cough. Get up. Yi Hongyi withdrew the desire in his eyes and reluctantly let go of Yarrow Moen. He walked over to Yi Junqing. We called you here because we have something to discuss with you. Tomorrow, the Crown Prince of Qi will be arriving in the Imperial City. We have thought about it. During this time, you will be in charge of the Crown Prince's safety. You can also treat him well in our stead, said Yi Hongyi casually as if he was talking about an extremely ordinary matter. He didn't seem to be asking for permission. This absolutely cannot be done. As long as the envoy's position is higher than the Crown Prince's, this subject doesn't have the right to treat them in private. Right now, Junqing doesn't have an official title, so I truly cannot bear this responsibility. Yi Junqing tactfully declined. You're blaming us for not giving you an official title? A trace of darkness flashed through Yi Hongyi's deep eyes as he spoke unhurriedly. Junqing wouldn't dare. I'm used to living a carefree life. Junqing will avoid those things that restrict people if I can. Junqing is just worried that this action will cause Qi to be dissatisfied and bring unnecessary trouble to your majesty. Yi Junqing respectfully cupped his hands in greeting as he spoke clearly. As expected of our good imperial younger brother. You're able to think of everything for us. However, you're worrying too much. The Crown Prince of Qi is just going through the motions this time. It has nothing to do with the diplomatic relations between our two countries. This matter is settled. The darkness in Yi Hongyi's eyes gradually disappeared as he patted Yi Junqing's shoulder. But, there are no buts. We still have some memorials to read. We'll be leaving first. Yi Hongyi didn't give Yi Junqing another chance to retort. However, just as he was about to step out of Guan Osprey Palace, he suddenly turned around to look at Yarrow Moen. Don't hurt your forehead again. We'll personally come over tonight to apply ice on it. Yi Hongyi glanced at Yarrow Moen with heartache before leaving. It wasn't until Yi Hongyi's figure faded out of sight that Yarrow Moen put away the naivety on her face and slowly walked to the table. What a good move, using a borrowed knife to kill someone. That's his style. Yarrow Moen's clear voice contained a hint of coldness. Yarrow Moen absent-mindedly lifted the teapot and poured herself a cup. Can't you feel how much His Majesty dotes on you? Yi Junqing still felt that Yarrow Moen had an indescribable hostility towards His Majesty. At the time, Mo Xin had sacrificed so much for Yi Hongyi's smile and comfort. However, Yarrow Moen had obtained the imperial favor so easily, yet she didn't seem to care at all. This was just like the saying, what you can't obtain, is always the best. What you obtain will never be treasured. The hand holding the teapot froze in the air for a moment before lowering down. Yarrow Moen turned to look towards Yi Junqing, a cold smile on her lips. Did you feel how much His Majesty hates you? Yarrow Moen countered coldly, her clear eyes shining with cold light. This is different. Junqing doesn't care about His Majesty's attitude at all. Yi Junqing knew what Yarrow Moen wanted to say, but these were two completely different things. The only reason he allowed Yi Hongyi to do as he pleased was because of Yarrow Moen. He had long since disregarded life and death. However, Yarrow Moen was Yi Hongyi's favored concubine. This honor was the guarantee of her safety. Then how does Prince know that Moen needs to care about His Majesty's attitude, about his honor and favor? Yarrow Moen's voice was sharp and filled with unshakable determination. But, Prince has said too much today. You don't know that there are very few people in this world who would like to hear those words. Moen is naturally not one of them. Yarrow Moen interrupted Yi Junqing's words and slammed the teacup onto the table. Then this prince has nothing to say. Yi Junqing was also a bit annoyed and stood to the side. Who was he warning her out of goodwill for? The Harmony Palace across from Guan Osprey Palace is empty. Tomorrow, Prince will bring Feng Yihan there. Yarrow Moen sighed in relief when she saw that Yi Junqing wasn't saying anything. Why should this prince listen to you? Yi Junqing turned around angrily in disagreement. Prince couldn't possibly think that Liu Shuo would be able to block the country of Qi's 7 phantom assassins, right? Yarrow Moen lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Junqing with an expression that said he had no other choice. Chapter 109. Tomorrow, this prince will bring Feng Yihan to Harmony Palace. That's all, said Yi Junqing solemnly before turning to leave. Then does Prince want to gamble? Or not? Yarrow Moen's harmless eyes blinked twice with sincerity. This prince isn't that idiot Yang Nansheng. Even if I die, this prince won't let you swindle Liu Shuo away. You should just give up, said Yi Junqing hatefully before leaving Guan Osprey Palace. As Yarrow Moen watched him leave angrily, her lips curved into a relieved smile. At this moment, Yi Junqing's figure was no longer just desolate and lonely. Helping Feng Yihan was a very important brick she was laying on Yi Junqing's path to the dragon throne of Great Chu. Just as Yarrow Moen expected, Yi Hongyi didn't think much of Feng Yihan's trip. He had Yi Junqing entertain Feng Yihan because he knew that Feng Yihan's trip would definitely be dangerous. If something happened to Feng Yihan, he would naturally hand Yi Junqing over to Qi. This way, there wouldn't be any need to negotiate for compensation and a war would be avoided. At the same time, he would also get rid of Yi Junqing, this thorn in his heart. Master, His Highness has already brought Feng Yihan to Harmony Palace. This subordinate has already investigated and found that Feng Yihan is accompanied by 15 people. 5 of them are his personal bodyguards, and all of them are first-rate experts. The other 10 are slightly inferior, reported Yin Shui as she stood next to Yarrow Moen. 15 people. It seems that King Qi really wants to depose this crown prince. Yin Shui, if you encounter the 7 phantom assassins, what are your chances of winning? Yarrow Moen's eyes were as deep as an abyss. It's easy to escape alone, but if we fight, there's a 30% chance of winning. Yin Shui was implying that she wouldn't be able to win. Yen, I believe that the people around Feng Yihan aren't all good-for-nothings. With Liu Shuo, you guys should be able to fight to a draw. Whether or not you can protect Feng Yihan now depends on your luck. Remember, no matter where or when, the esteemed prince's life is the most precious, followed by your own, understand, said Yarrow Moen as she took a sip of tea. This subordinate understands. Yin Shui knew that Yarrow Moen didn't want her to fight against the 7 phantom assassins. Even if she couldn't protect herself, she couldn't lose her life. It was only on the 2nd day after Feng Yihan arrived at Harmony Palace that Yi Hongyi ordered a banquet to be held. Aside from himself, Yi Junqing also attended the banquet. Yarrow Moen couldn't help but sneer. Yi Hongyi really didn't take Feng Yihan seriously at all. Even if he wasn't favored, he was still the crown prince of a country. To actually have a fool accompany him, he was clearly trying to embarrass Feng Yihan. Little did he know that he had made an error in judgment. This kind of unbridled humiliation would one day bring him a calamity. The time was set for noon, and the banquet was set in Harmony Palace. Whether it was the time or the location, it was clear that Yi Hongyi was deliberately looking down on them. Inside Guan Osprey Palace, Yarrow Moen had Tingyu dress herself up exaggeratedly. Tingyu inserted the last golden buyao from the dressing table into Yarrow Moen's hair bun. Niang, don't you feel tired? Asked Tingyu embarrassedly when she saw the 7 or 8 hairpins on Yarrow Moen's head. Do you know why this consort is doing this? Yarrow Moen still felt that it wasn't enough, so she smeared some more rouge on her face. Although her originally elegant appearance didn't lose any of its beauty now, it was too gaudy. This servant doesn't understand. Tingyu's eyes widened as she waited for Yarrow Moen's explanation. It's very simple. The sloppier this consort is, the more humiliated this consort is, the angrier Feng Yihan will be and the more he'll resent His Majesty's arrangements. In comparison, it'll be easier for him to sense Yi Junqing's sincerity and calmness. Yarrow Moen pointed out meaningfully. Sometimes, Tingyu really doesn't understand. Since you're helping the esteemed prince so much, it's fine if you don't let him know, but you're still angering His Highness half to death every time, complained Tingyu as she put away the rouge. You've seen him angry before? Asked Yarrow Moen suspiciously as she lifted her brows. Of course. When this servant passed by the east wing several times, I clearly heard the esteemed prince cursing you. Tingyu nodded vigorously. What was he cursing this consort about? Yarrow Moen looked towards Tingyu with interest as her lips curved into a playful smile. It was mostly words like black-bellied and domineering. Although this servant didn't hear it clearly, from the cadence of his voice, he was definitely angry, said Tingyu confidently. Is that so? It's about time. Follow this consort to Harmony Palace. Yarrow Moen committed Tingyu's words to memory as she slowly walked out of Guan Osprey Palace. It was rare for the early summer weather to be this cool. When Yarrow Moen pushed open the palace doors and stepped into Harmony Palace, all she saw was a field of peach blossoms. Yarrow Moen suddenly understood. This Harmony Palace had always been unused. Back when she was still the Empress, she would occasionally enter the palace and order the gardeners to plant peach blossoms here. This was to prevent the courtyard from being too empty and desolate. Now it seemed that her unintentional actions had created this fairyland. The wind picked up and a faint fragrance wafted through the air. Flower petals swirled in the wind as they danced wildly in the air. In the depths of the sea of flowers, there was a person sitting alone on a stone bench with his back against a peach tree. His jade fingers were holding a book as he carefully read it. The man's hair was tied up with a purple crown and there was a blue ribbon faintly visible in his hair. He was elegant and quiet like a beautiful jade statue. A few flower petals fell on the man's shoulders. Under his white robes, the man seemed even more extraordinary and refined. Ting Yu was just about to start walking when Yarrow Mo Wn stopped her. She didn't want to disturb this beautiful and quiet atmosphere too early, but it was already too late. At this time, the man had already put down his book and was looking towards Yarrow Mo Wan. His handsome face, his sharp facial features, and his indifferent and refined temperament all showed how extraordinary this man was. However, Yarrow Moan could feel that his clear eyes contained a kind of melancholy and sorrow, as well as a kind of grief, indignation, and endurance. This feeling was familiar. If he hadn't experienced extreme pain, how could he have such a deep and distant gaze filled with hatred? "Who are you?" It was supposed to be the man's question, but the voice came from behind her. At the side, Ting Yu swallowed hard. "Prince, you don't even recognize my master?" Ting Yu carefully looked towards Yi Junqing, who was standing behind Yarrow Mo Wan. She felt uneasy. After all, in Yi Junqing's eyes, her master wasn't an idiot. "Yarrow Mo Wan? Why are you dressed like this?" Yi Junqing quickly walked in front of Yarrow Mo Wan, his eyes filled with shock. "What's wrong with this? This consort feels that this outfit is extremely beautiful." Yarrow Mo Wan puffed out her cheeks confidently. "Ting Yu, are you sure that your master looked at himself in the mirror before leaving?" Yi Junqing stared at Yarrow Mo Wan. Ting Yu was speechless and felt ashamed. "Esteemed prince, this is..." A clear and melodious voice rang out as Feng Yihan elegantly walked to Yi Junqing's side. His slender eyes were clear and bright like crystals. "Ahem. This is His Majesty's most favored consort Yarrow Niang Niang Niang." Yi Junqing's voice was slightly awkward as he introduced Yarrow Mo Wan. However, Yarrow Mo Wan didn't seem to mind. Even if she lost face, it was Yi Hongyi's face. "Consort Yarrow, this is Chi's Crown Prince." Yi Junqing turned to formally introduce Feng Yihan to Yarrow Mo Wan. "Ian, why aren't you greeting this consort?" When Yi Junqing finished speaking, Yarrow Mo Wan immediately lifted her face that was covered in a thick layer of rouge and spoke proudly. Feng Yihan trembled slightly when he heard this, but he didn't reveal too much of his emotions. He still maintained his calm and indifferent appearance. "Consort Yarrow, you should be the one greeting the Crown Prince," reminded Yi Junqing in a low voice. But His Majesty said that aside from him, this consort is the most important here, so everyone should greet this consort. "That's right. Why didn't you greet this consort when you saw this consort earlier?" Yarrow Mo Wan placed her hands on her hips as she looked towards Yi Junqing rudely. At this moment, Yi Junqing suddenly felt as if he had been stripped naked and hung in the air. If it wasn't for his strong willpower, he definitely would have started roaring at Yarrow Mo Wan. "This one is Feng Yihan. Greetings consort Yarrow Niang Niang. Everyone says that consort Yarrow's beauty is capable of toppling cities and is innocent and pure. Seeing you today, you truly live up to your reputation." There was a smile in Feng Yihan's eyes. Yarrow Mo Wan couldn't see a trace of disgust or disdain in those eyes. His gaze was sincere, as if he truly had boundless respect for her. Yarrow Mo Wan couldn't help but sigh. Feng Yihan truly was shrewd. Chapter 110. Your Highness Crown Prince, Junqing has already ordered the Imperial Kitchen to prepare a banquet. Today can be considered as an official welcoming banquet for Your Highness Crown Prince. Brother Junqing is too considerate. This is an unofficial banquet, so just call me Yihan. Feng Yihan's lips curved slightly. The sincerity in his expression wasn't intentional. "All right. Yihan, please come in." Yi Junqing didn't put on any airs since he had a good chat with Feng Yihan yesterday. "Shouldn't this consort walk in front?" Yarrow Moan's sudden words immediately ruined the beautiful atmosphere. Yi Junqing took a deep breath, but before he could say anything, he saw Feng Yihan respectfully step aside and look towards Yarrow Moen with a smile. "Your Highness Consort Yarrow, please." His clear voice was like rain pattering on porcelain, pleasant to the ear. Yarrow Moen didn't stand on ceremony and swaggered into Harmony Palace. During the banquet, Yi Junqing and Feng Yihan chatted about everything from the past to the present. On the side, Yarrow Moen spent most of her time eating and drinking, but in reality, she was taking Feng Yihan's every word to heart. No matter how well Feng Yihan concealed it, his words still revealed his boundless ambition. Of course, in order to play her role to the fullest, Yarrow Moen would also take the opportunity to interject a few unrelated questions. Every time this happened, Yi Junqing's gaze would be filled with unconcealable indignation. On the other hand, Feng Yihan would patiently and meticulously resolve his doubts. He would even discuss things with Yarrow Moen for a while. When they returned to Guan Osprey Palace, Yi Junqing didn't even wait for Yarrow Moen to sit down and drink tea before he started complaining. No matter how much His Majesty dislikes Feng Yihan, shouldn't he still show his face? Even if he doesn't show his face, he shouldn't have sent you to humiliate him. You too, do you have to act so exaggerated? If this prince was still the esteemed prince from back then, it would have been fine, but right now, this prince is just an idle person. No matter how you look at it, this is neglecting Feng Yihan. Yi Junqing looked towards Yarrow Moen angrily. Back then, His Majesty ordered you to entertain Feng Yihan, so you should know His Majesty's intentions. There's no need for His Majesty to waste time on someone who's about to die. As for having this consort step forward, there's nothing wrong with it. After all, in the eyes of the world, this consort is indeed His Majesty's most beloved consort. However, Prince's reaction has truly disappointed Moen, said Yarrow Moen solemnly as she looked towards Yi Junqing, who was pacing back and forth in front of her. "What's wrong with this prince?" Yi Junqing didn't seem to care. "It's only been a day, but your highness is already so devoted to Feng Yihan." She was actually avenging him like this. It seems like Feng Yihan's strength isn't his shrewdness but his ability to attack the heart. Yarrow Moen analyzed the situation. This prince just feels that we shouldn't underestimate Feng Yihan so much, that's all. Yi Junqing felt guilty when he heard this, but he still tried his best to argue. Prince should be aware that Feng Yihan isn't the same type of person as you. His heart is in the imperial court and he is determined to obtain the throne of Qi. Every step he takes is to pave the way for him to become the ruler. Moen only hopes that Prince won't be muddle-headed and become a stepping stone on his path to success. Yarrow Moen elegantly lifted the teapot, poured a cup, and pushed it towards Yi Junqing. "Haven't you always advocated for him to be safe?" Yarrow Moen's words were so shocking that Yi Junqing couldn't help but become solemn. In this instant, he had enough reason to believe that the Yarrow Moen in front of him wasn't any less intelligent or scheming than Morshine. This consort wants Prince to feel that you care about protecting him. Only then would he feel grateful. If His Highness was being used by him to protect him, he would only think that His Highness was stupid. This Feng Yihan really isn't simple. The moment Yarrow Moen saw Feng Yihan, she knew that he definitely wasn't a good person to be able to remain unscathed despite being besieged on all sides and sit firmly on the position of Crown Prince. What's the difference? This prince just doesn't want Great Chu to be dragged into Qi's internal strife. This prince isn't asking for his gratitude. Yi Junqing looked towards Yarrow Moen with clear eyes. "Prince, this servant has no choice but to boldly say this. My master ruined her own image to help you. It's fine if you don't feel grateful, but you're even blaming her. It's truly disappointing." No matter how handsome Yi Junqing was, Tingyu still couldn't help but complain when she saw him speak to Yarrow Moen like this. How did she help this prince? How did this prince blame her? "Tingyu, your words are getting more and more incoherent." Yi Junqing looked towards Tingyu in confusion as he admitted to Tingyu's accusations. "Prince." Tingyu wanted to refute but Yarrow Moen stopped her. "Tingyu, don't lower yourself to his level. This consort is tired, help this consort back to rest." Yi Junqing didn't have the heart to rule the world, so he naturally wouldn't understand everything she had done. Yarrow Moen slowly got up and walked into the bedroom. "Don't go. This prince still hasn't finished speaking. Yi Junqing immediately spoke up after Yarrow Moen left. Isn't Fluffy already there? Replied Yarrow Moen, then walked into the bedroom without looking back. When Yi Junqing heard this, he looked towards Fluffy, who was sitting lazily on the chaise lounge. Black lines instantly appeared on his forehead. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were gentle and beautiful. The peach blossoms on the trees were bathed in the moonlight and glowed faintly. Master, the king of Chu has gone too far. Not only did he send a crippled prince to receive you, he also sent that idiotic concubine. He's clearly not putting you in his eyes. The cold voice was like the snow on Millennium Cold Mountain, completely devoid of warmth. A man dressed in black stood behind Feng Yihan. His face was handsome, but there wasn't a trace of expression on it. This person was Ting Feng, a special ranked hidden guard under Feng Yihan. No wonder Yi Hongyi. Imperial Father's intention to get rid of me was so obvious, and Yi Hongyi isn't stupid. How could he not see this crown prince's current situation? However, the fact that he had Yi Junqing receive me is a pleasant surprise for this crown prince. Don't underestimate that Yi Junqing. If this crown prince said that he was the one who conquered Great Chu, it wouldn't be an exaggeration at all. If it wasn't for that woman, how could Yi Hongyi sit so stably on the throne of Chu? Feng Yihan stood in front of the window, the sharpness in his eyes dimming the moonlight and stars. Master is talking about Yarrow Morshin. In this era where many countries were divided and warlords rose up, those who had left a mark on the political stage, regardless of whether they were men or women, would be remembered. Absolute beauty is easy to wither, even a city is easy to crumble. A woman with such astonishing beauty and absolute wisdom will definitely attract the jealousy of the heavens. What a pity! A trace of pity flashed through Feng Yihan's eyes, but he quickly regained his calm. It seems that the rumors are true. It's truly not worth it for Yi Junqing to miss Mu and his sister-in-law to end up like this. Ting Feng shook his head. It seems that the rumors are true. It's truly not worth it for brother Mu and sister-in-law to end up like this. Ting Feng shook his head. It's better to betray the country than to betray a beauty's smile. Whether it's worth it or not, only he knows. Has the 7 phantom assassins arrived? Feng Yihan's tone abruptly changed and his expression turned solemn. It seems that Imperial Father has made up his mind to get rid of me and make Feng duo. It was common for sons and sons to turn against each other in the Imperial family, but just because it was common didn't mean that they were numb to it. Feng Yihan's heart still ached at the thought of being hunted down by his own father. Master, you can't wait any longer. That's right. We really can't wait any longer. Send the order for them to prepare. As long as this crown prince can return alive. Feng Yihan sighed lightly, but the second half of his words were stuck in his throat. Don't worry, Master. Ting Feng swears to protect the crown prince with my life, said Ting Feng firmly. Feng Yihan dismissed Ting Feng with a wave of his hand. He looked at the peach blossom forest in front of him, but it also seemed like he was looking beyond the peach blossoms. Perhaps it was because he didn't want to see Feng Yihan. Yi Hongyi hadn't come to Guan Osprey Palace for the past 2 days. Instead, when Feng Yihan found out that Yi Junqing was staying in Guan Osprey Palace, he actually came to pay a visit. When Feng Yihan appeared in Guan Osprey Palace, it was currently in chaos. Your Highness. There's so much blood, what do we do? Ting Yu's hands trembled as she held the basin of water. She stamped her feet on the ground and tears kept flowing out of her eyes. Don't be noisy. This consort is doing it right now. Yarrow Moen was half kneeling on the chaise lounge as she rubbed Fluffy's stomach with her hands. She bit down hard on her lips and her forehead was covered in sweat. Chapter 111. How? How could this prince do that? Yi Junqing widened his eyes and took a few steps back as if he was avoiding the god of plague. Then what do we do now? It just won't come out. What do we do? When Yarrow Moen saw that Fluffy's voice had changed, tears welled up in her eyes. The scene of giving birth was still fresh in her mind. Yarrow Moen could empathize with Fluffy's pain. I'll do it. Just as everyone was feeling helpless, Feng Yihan suddenly walked forward. His slender fingers gently caressed Fluffy's stomach and pushed it rhythmically. At this moment, everyone's eyes were on Fluffy. No one cared about status, or etiquette. How is it? Yarrow Moen looked towards Fong Ihan worriedly. They were so close, so it was easy for Yarrow Moen to find a calm expression on his face even though his forehead was covered in sweat. Don't worry, it's fine. Hearing Fong Ihan say this, Yarrow Moen's heartbeat slowed down slightly. Out of gratitude, Yarrow Moen subconsciously lifted her hand and wiped Fong Ihan's forehead with her handkerchief. After all, it was for Fluffy, so she had to do something. However, in Yi Juanqing's eyes, this scene was extremely dazzling. It came out. Your Highness. Hurry and look, a kitten came out. It's white, just like Fluffy. Ting Yu cheered excitedly. Her eyes were brimming with tears of excitement. Don't worry, there's another one. Fong Ihan rubbed Fluffy's stomach rhythmically. As expected, not long after the first kitten was born, another dripping wet kitten came out. Is it done? Yarrow Moen looked up towards Fong Ihan apprehensively. When their eyes met, Fong Ihan's heart trembled. He couldn't describe how clear and pure those eyes were. They were as beautiful as spring flowers, as beautiful as the summer moon, as beautiful as the autumn wind, as beautiful as the winter snow. The light from those eyes pierced straight into Fong Ihan's heart and illuminated the darkness in his heart. In this moment, Fong Ihan suddenly understood why Yi Hongyi favored her so much. It was because the pure and innocent look in Yarrow Moen's eyes was what people in the imperial family lacked the most. It couldn't be Fluffy. In this sort of situation, Yarrow Moen naturally missed the meaning in Fong Ihan's eyes and asked anxiously. Don't worry, both mother and child are safe. Fong Ihan trembled and immediately restrained the desire in his eyes. Great. Luckily, Fluffy was fine. Fortunately, Yarrow Moen no longer paid attention to Fong Ihan. She stroked Fluffy's head with both hands, her eyes misty. Especially when she saw the two little fellows sucking on Fluffy's stomach, Yarrow Moen's tears rolled down like pearls from a broken necklace. Her delicate appearance made people feel pity for her. It's a happy thing that consort Yarrow got two kittens. Fong Ihan had the urge to go up and comfort her, but he forcefully suppressed the urge. Behind them, Yi Juanqing saw all of this. For some reason, a sour feeling welled up in his heart. It was very faint, but it was definitely there. I'm fine, I'm just crying tears of joy. Yarrow Moen blurted out. Her hand was still lovingly stroking Fluffy as if she wanted to give her endless comfort. Tears of joy. Fong Ihan stared at Yarrow Moen intently as a mysterious light flashed through his eyes. Ah. Yeah, that's what they said, right? Yarrow Moen suddenly realized that she'd lost her composure and immediately raised her head to look towards Yi Juanqing. At least you're not that stupid. That's what I meant. Yi Juanqing naturally understood Yarrow Moen's intentions and added, Your Highness Crown Prince, you probably haven't eaten yet, right? After Yarrow Moen's reminder, Yi Juanqing intentionally distanced himself from Fong Ihan and even changed the way he addressed him. I know that Juanqing lives here, so I wanted to come find you and have a meal together at Harmony Palace. Would Juanqing be willing to give me this face? Fong Ihan withdrew his gaze and turned to look towards Yi Juanqing. Crown Prince is too serious. If it weren't for the fact that Fluffy had a problem, Juanqing would probably be bothering Crown Prince at Harmony Palace already, said Yi Juanqing lightly. I couldn't ask for more. Consort Yarrow Niang probably still likes these two kittens for a while. Otherwise, Ihan would definitely invite Consort Yarrow to have a meal together, said Fong Ihan respectfully as he looked towards Yarrow Moen. Ian, you're a good person. If you invite this consort will definitely go. Yarrow Moen lifted her young face and nodded firmly. Fong Ihan didn't say anything and only smiled slightly before leaving Guan Osprey Palace with Yi Juanqing. As Yarrow Moen watched Fong Ihan and Yi Juanqing leave, the smile on her face froze and her expression turned cold. Your Highness, what's wrong? Asked Ting Yu worriedly when she sensed Yarrow Moen's strange expression. I was too excited just now and actually forgot. In front of Fong Ihan, I'm afraid this idiot's acting is over, said Yarrow Moen thoughtfully. Then what should we do? Will he tell His Majesty? The corners of Ting Yu's mouth curled up into a surprised smile, and her face was filled with worry. Of course not, he's not an idiot. Forget it, in any case, this consort isn't planning on acting all the way in front of him. Let's just see what he does next, said Yarrow Moen leisurely. When she looked at Fluffy, her gaze had lost its sharpness and was replaced with a trace of warmth and gentleness. Fong Ihan stood in front of the window, aloof from the world. The night breeze was gentle, and the fragrance of flowers was strong. His white robes fluttered in the wind as if he was riding the wind. Master, Ting Feng discovered that there are hidden guards in Guan Osprey Palace, and there's more than one. As a hidden guard himself, Ting Feng could naturally sense the unusual auras hidden in Guan Osprey Palace. How are their martial arts? Tears of joy. How could an idiot say something like that? Yarrow Moen was rumored to be an idiot since she was young, but now it seemed that the rumors weren't necessarily true. One is on par with Ting Feng Chihu, the other is far above Ting Feng, reported Ting Feng. Oh, Guan Osprey Palace actually has someone like that. Feng Ihan had reason to be surprised. He knew that Ting Feng was a top expert among the hidden guards. If they were far above him, then what kind of existence was that? This subordinate is incompetent, I couldn't tell where they came from. Ting Feng hung his head in shame. It's fine. No matter where they came from, it's all good for this crown prince. Feng Ihan pursed his lips lightly as a hint of a smile flashed through his eyes. This subordinate doesn't understand. Ting Feng looked towards Feng Ihan in confusion. Since they're hiding in Guan Osprey Palace, then it's very likely that they're Yi Junqing's people. Right now, Yi Junqing is in charge of this crown prince's safety. If something happens to this crown prince, Yi Junqing won't be able to escape responsibility. If the state of Qi investigates, Yi Hongyi will definitely push Yi Junqing out. This is also why Yi Hongyi wants Yi Junqing to be in charge of entertaining this crown prince. Because of this, Yi Junqing will definitely think of a way to protect this crown prince. Feng Yihan's smile deepened. Perhaps he could also fight against the 7 phantom assassins. What if they're that foolish concubine's people? Asked Ting Feng. Then that would be interesting. Feng Yihan looked towards Guan Osprey Palace with his deep eyes. He couldn't help but think back to when their eyes met. Originally, Yarrow Junting getting married again wasn't a big deal, but Yarrow Moen still decided to go back and take a look. Firstly, she wanted to see which family's girl had run into bad luck. If it was a kind-hearted person, she didn't mind being a good person and saving them. Secondly, she heard that Yarrow Sulwan would be going back. Ever since Yarrow Sulwan left last time, she hadn't seen her in quite a few days. She really did miss her. Because the divine fortune teller Yarrow Junting had hired had predicted that the Li family's second miss would have a son in her life, a mother's status would depend on the son's status. Yarrow Junting had changed his decision to take in a wife because he hoped that his first son would be born of the wife. That way, his status would naturally be more respectable. However, Yarrow Moen scoffed at this explanation because she knew that Yarrow Junting, who had drunk the rootless water, wouldn't have a son anymore. The entire wedding was very grand. There were as many guests as there were clouds, but Yarrow Junting didn't seem very happy. On the other hand, the second miss was smiling brightly like a spring flower. Yarrow Moen had investigated her. She was called Li Qingqing. She had a narrow-minded and crafty personality. Although she was born of a concubine, she bullied her older sister to the point of almost hanging herself. She clearly wasn't a good person. Chapter 112. You don't know how to kneel and greet this consort when you see this consort? Yarrow Moen turned around with a faint smile, her eyes clear and calm. There are so many people here, so this consort feels that there's still a need for you to continue feigning ignorance. Otherwise, if some blabbermouth were to report your current appearance to His Majesty, you should know the consequences of deceiving the monarch. Yarrow Sulwan looked towards Yarrow Moen coldly, her eyes filled with disdain and mockery. There really isn't a need for that. Moen is His Majesty's favorite concubine right now. Which reckless person would dare to go to His Majesty and speak ill of the woman he loves the most? Yarrow Moen had a faint smile on her face, but her heart was piercingly cold. Yarrow Sulwan was her enemy, so she wouldn't let go of any chance to punish her. Yarrow Moen, don't be too happy so soon. His Majesty favors you because you're a fool. If His Majesty finds out your true colors one day, this consort guarantees that you'll definitely die even more miserably than Yarrow Morshin. Yarrow Sulwan's white teeth bit down on her scarlet lips as intense hatred surged in the depths of her eyes. So, second sister saw how big sister died with her own eyes. Moen really wants to know, what were you doing when eldest sister died? Yarrow Moen approached Yarrow Sulwan step by step. When she bent down, her cherry lips brushed past Yarrow Sulwan's ear. The clear sound was like the sudden sound of a death knell from hell. Yarrow Sulwan abruptly retreated, her hands subconsciously covering her chest. She had always suspected that Yarrow Mo Wan knew the truth behind Yarrow Morshin's death, but this kind of suspicion had no basis. Even she herself felt that it was unimaginable. When Yarrow Morshin died, only His Majesty and she were present. What are you afraid of, second sister? It's not like Moen will eat you. Actually, second older sister is right about one thing. It's because Moen is an idiot that His Majesty likes her. If second older sister is also an idiot. Yarrow Moen laughed lightly, then turned around and entered the palanquin with Ting Yu's support. The moment the curtain fell, the smile on Yarrow Moen's face froze. The current Yarrow Sulwan was already at her wit's end. She believed that Yarrow Sulwan would continue walking down the path she had laid out for her. When she returned to Guan Osprey Palace, Yarrow Moen looked at the two men in the main hall in astonishment and suddenly felt a bit jealous of Fluffy. She saw Yi Junqing and Feng Yihan sitting on either side of Fluffy, each holding a kitten. Especially Yi Junqing, his careful expression was even cuter than that of a kitten. It was extremely laughable. Cough cough. Why didn't you say anything when you came back? The moment Yi Junqing saw Yarrow Moen, his expression turned slightly embarrassed. He immediately returned the kitten to Fluffy and spoke with a solemn expression. Is this Guan Osprey Palace yours? Does this consort need to inform you that I'm coming back? Yarrow Moen's expression stiffened as she retorted angrily. Although she sensed that Feng Yihan seemed to have sensed something, she still had to keep up the act. Yihan greets Consort Yarrow. This is a small gift from Yihan. I hope Consort Yarrow will accept it. Feng Yihan slowly stood up, but he didn't put the kitten in his hand back. Is it for me? Yarrow Moen followed Feng Yihan's gaze and saw that on the jadeite table, there was a long golden box studded with diamonds. Yarrow Mo Wan cheerfully walked over to the table and casually opened the gold box. There was a jade hairpin inside, a very simple jade hairpin. The body of the hairpin was made of mutton fat jade and the head of the hairpin was polished from peacock stone. It doesn't look that good either. Yarrow Moen twirled the jade hairpin in her hand repeatedly. For some reason, her body suddenly swayed and the jade hairpin fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. I'm truly sorry, I wasn't able to hold it properly. Yarrow Moen looked towards Feng Yihan with a silly smile, then stepped over the pieces of the jade hairpin to walk over to Fluffy. It's fine, Consort Yarrow doesn't like it anyways. Yihan promises Consort Yarrow that before I leave, I'll definitely give Consort Yarrow something you like. However, Yihan has a request. No one noticed that the moment Yarrow Moen broke the jade hairpin, Feng Yihan's lips curved slightly. Yen, you saved Fluffy before. As long as I can do it, I'll promise you. Yarrow Moen nodded solemnly. Yihan wants this kitten. Feng Yihan lovingly stroked the kitten's snow-white fur as his voice contained a trace of anticipation. But it's still drinking milk. Yarrow Moen blinked as she looked towards Feng Yihan. It's fine, Yihan can wait a few more days. I hope Consort Yarrow will be willing to part with it, replied Feng Yihan confidently. Alright, you were the one who saved them after all, so it's fine to give you one. However, you have to swear that you'll definitely treat Fluffy's baby well. Yarrow Moen seemed to have made a huge decision. Yihan swears. During this entire process, Yi Junqing found that he couldn't get a word in edgewise. The feeling of wanting to speak but not knowing what to say made him feel extremely defeated. How could Feng Yihan be able to chat so happily with an idiot? It even seemed like they regretted not having met earlier. You couldn't have fallen for him, right? You actually gave the baby that Fluffy gave birth to him? And to think that Fluffy was so loyal to you. After Feng Yihan left, Yi Junqing felt indignant on Fluffy's behalf. Ting Yu, prepare dinner. Ting Yu understood tacitly and walked out of Guan Osprey Palace, closing the palace doors behind her. What a good Feng Yihan, cursing people without using profanity. Yarrow Moen's expression was cold and her voice was cold. He cursed you? Yi Junqing was completely confused. How come he hadn't heard anything? There's such a lousy hairpin in a gold-plated box. He's clearly saying that Moen has a golden jade exterior but is rotten inside. Yarrow Moen rolled her eyes at Yi Junqing with extreme disdain. No wonder. Then you intentionally broke the jade hairpin? Yi Junqing suddenly understood. At the time, he had also thought that there was some sort of treasure in the golden box. What else? Do I have to thank him? However, he probably knew that Moen was playing dumb, otherwise he wouldn't have used the cat to haggle with this consort, said Yarrow Moen resentfully as she sat down lazily at the table. What price did he bargain with you? Yi Junqing suddenly wondered if he hadn't used his brain for too long that it had rusted. Otherwise, how could he not have heard that there was something wrong with the conversation just now? He said that he would give Moen something that Moen likes before he leaves. There are two meanings to this. The first is to express his sincerity. As long as Moen agrees to his request, she will definitely receive a generous gift in return. And the word leave is his request. He hopes that Moen can guarantee his safety in the Chu Palace until he leaves, analyzed Yarrow Moen calmly. Aren't you thinking too much? Yi Junqing didn't think that Feng Yihan's words contained that many layers of meaning. Moen agreed to give him the cat, which means that she agreed to his request. That's why he's stalling for time. Yarrow Moen let out a long sigh. At the time, she had only known that the Crown Prince of Shu, Chu Morbei, was very cunning. It seemed that this Feng Yihan was even worse. Stalling for time? Compared to Yarrow Moen's wisdom and quick-wittedness, Yi Junqing suddenly felt that he really couldn't continue to be this dispirited. Waiting for the cat to be weaned is just stalling for time. He's probably already made a move in Qi. Before the time is right, he's going to stay in Harmony Palace. Yarrow Moen felt like she had been schemed against. She had underestimated Feng Yihan. It can't be that bad, right? Yi Junqing disagreed. When we meet tomorrow, Feng Yihan will definitely ask Prince to extend the duration of the diplomatic mission. Is Prince willing to make this bet with Moen? A strange smile appeared on Yarrow Moen's tired face as she looked towards Yi Junqing with raised brows. Other than quicksand, anything is fine. Yi Junqing immediately became vigilant. Then forget it. Ting Yu, is dinner not ready yet? Yarrow Moen looked away from Yi Junqing and called out loudly. Yi Junqing instantly broke out in a cold sweat. That was close, he'd almost been tricked into quicksand by her. Inside Harmony Palace, Feng Yihan was lazily leaning back on a wisteria bamboo chair with a book in hand. The corners of his lips curled up and he was in a very good mood. Master, the scouts have reported that the 7 phantom assassins have appeared in Jingzi. Based on the estimated route, they'll arrive in Great Chu in 3 days, reported Ting Feng. I really didn't expect that Yarrow Moen's wisdom wouldn't lose to her older sisters at all. In fact, she might even surpass Yarrow Morshin's. Even this crown prince wouldn't be able to endure for more than 10 years and be willing to be a fool in the eyes of the world. How did she do it? Feng Yihan acted like he hadn't heard Ting Feng's report. His eyes were filled with stubbornness and doubt. Master, the 7 phantom assassins are about to arrive. Ting Feng deliberately repeated with a worried expression. Even if he had the heart to protect his master, the strength of the 7 phantom assassins didn't allow Ting Feng to be optimistic. Chapter 113. When this crown prince sent the colored glass box to Guan Osprey Palace today, guess what happened? Even now, Feng Yihan was still amazed by Yarrow Moen's incomparable wisdom. This subordinate doesn't know. Ting Feng was a bit anxious. The 7 phantom assassins were about to arrive, but his master was so fixated on a fool. How could he not be anxious? Yarrow Moen broke the jade hairpin. Feng Yihan's voice contained a trace of admiration. This subordinate doesn't understand. Why does Prince need to be so fixated on the actions of a fool? The 7 Phantom Assassins. Before Ting Feng could finish, he was interrupted by Feng Yihan. Yarrow Moen isn't a fool. Not only that, she's extremely intelligent. She already promised this Crown Prince that she would ensure Crown Prince's safety while she stays in Chu Palace until she leaves. Feng Yihan's smile was deep and his eyes were firm. That woman isn't a fool. How could that be possible? Ting Feng didn't think much of it. At the welcoming banquet, just that outfit alone was enough to make people blush with shame. You don't believe me? This Crown Prince will prove it to you tomorrow night. Feng Yihan suddenly looked forward to fighting with Yarrow Moen again. Then the 7 Phantom Assassins. Ting Feng asked unwillingly. From the looks of it, it's hard to say who will win. You can leave. Feng Yihan's expression was less gloomy and more calm. He didn't know why, but he had no reason to believe Yarrow Moen. He believed that this mysterious woman would definitely give him the safety he wanted. The next day, when Yi Junqing heard Feng Yihan's request to stay for a few more days, he was extremely glad that he hadn't made the bet with Yarrow Moen on impulse. Otherwise, it would be too late for regrets. From the day Crown Prince moved in, this Harmony Palace belongs to Your Highness. You can stay however long Crown Prince wishes to stay. Junqing will sincerely welcome you, replied Yi Junqing. In that case, Yihan will be grateful. A hypocrite cherishes a hypocrite, and a hero cherishes a hero. Even though Yi Junqing was in a difficult situation right now, in Feng Yihan's heart, this person was always more worthy of his respect than Yi Hongyi. Although Yi Hongyi didn't care much about Feng Yihan's arrival, he still had to follow the usual etiquette. Thus, Yi Junqing brought Feng Yihan out of the Imperial Palace to the Ministry of Rites. In Guan Osprey Palace, Yarrow Moen was sipping tea when Yin Shui suddenly appeared. Master, Ben Lei has sent news that Great Shu is currently moving troops towards Mongyuan's Linjun County. It seems they intend to send troops. Yin Shui handed the light purple letter over to Yarrow Moen. Yarrow Moen's lips curved into a helpless smile as she looked at the letter in her hand. Whenever she thought of Chu Morbei, she would feel a headache coming on. He was an extremely troublesome fellow. It seems like Chu Morbei is certain that Feng Yihan will die in Great Chu, which is why he acted so early. This time, he's a bit too arrogant. Yin Shui, is the 7 Phantom Assassins really that powerful? As Yarrow Moen spoke, she casually placed the letter into the teacup. The purple letter melted as soon as it entered the water and disappeared without a trace. This kind of writing paper was made from edible pollen. When mixed with tea, it had a refreshing taste. Replying Master, this subordinate has never fought with them, but I've heard rumors that they're proficient in illusions. Every time someone dies by their hands, they always have a smile on their face, as if they don't feel any pain. Also, the 7 Phantom Assassins have never failed before. Yin Shui explained everything she knew. This consort hasn't seen Nanxing in a long time. Take some time today to return to Phoenix Feather Manor and pass on a message for this consort. Tell him that Moen misses him. Also, send a reply to Ben Lei and tell him to be patient. Chu Morbei won't have a chance to send troops, said Yarrow Moen indifferently as she took a sip of tea. Yes. Yin Shui's lips twitched. She had 10,000 reasons to believe that Yang Nanxing didn't want to see her master even in his dreams. Once Yin Shui left, Ting Yu rushed in from outside the palace. Your Highness, it's bad. What is it? Yarrow Moen wasn't flustered. After experiencing all sorts of hardships, Yarrow Moen believed that there was nothing that could catch her unprepared. Your Highness Consort Li has gone stupid. Ting Yu's words were shocking. When Yarrow Moen heard this, the hand holding the teacup paused for a moment. Her eyes suddenly lit up. This child was worth teaching. In the end, Yarrow Sulwan didn't disappoint her. On the shore of Jade Lake, no matter how Mingyu tried to stop her, Yarrow Sulwan still broke free from Mingyu and jumped into the lake. Fortunately, it was early summer, so the lake water was warm. Your Highness, hurry and come up. Be careful of the wind. Mingyu didn't know how to swim, so she could only shout from the shore. No. There's a 7-colored fish in this lake. Sulwan must catch it. If His Majesty likes it, Sulwan must catch it and present it to His Majesty. Yarrow Sulwan dived into the lake and didn't come out for a while. Your Highness. Someone come. Hurry and save your highness. Mingyu looked at the lake in terror, her forehead covered in sweat. When Yarrow Moen came, this was the scene she saw. What is second older sister doing? Yarrow Moen walked to Mingyu's side and looked towards Jade Lake suspiciously. Consort Yarrow. Your highness, Consort Yarrow, hurry and persuade my master. This servant has never heard that there are 7 colored fish in this world. Early this morning, your highness ran out like a madwoman and said that she must catch a 7-colored fish to present to his majesty. Your highness has already gone down for a long time. If she continues like this, her strength will run out and something big will happen. Mingyu knelt at Yarrow Moen's feet and begged. 7 colored fish. Wan has never seen one before either. Yarrow Moen's clear and calm eyes emitted a faint halo. Her jade fingers rested on her cheeks as she looked at Yarrow Sulwan, who was flopping around in the lake with interest. The corners of her lips curved into a playful smile. Consort Yarrow. Mingyu looked towards Yarrow Moen in astonishment. For a moment, she seemed to see a flash of light in the depths of Yarrow Moen's eyes. It seemed that Yarrow Sulwan saying that Yarrow Moen wasn't an idiot wasn't impossible. Your Majesty, you came. Yarrow Moen knew that Mingyu was suspicious, but she didn't care. She jogged over to greet Yi Hongyi. Why are you here as well? Ever since Feng Yihan moved into Harmony Palace, Yi Hongyi had refrained from going to Guan Osprey Palace in order to avoid awkwardness. Now that he saw Yarrow Moen at Jade Lake, Yi Hongyi almost forgot his purpose for coming. Wan heard that second older sister wanted to catch 7 colored fish, so I came to help second older sister. Your Majesty, wait here. Wan will go into the lake right now. Yarrow Moen walked towards Jade Lake in a very serious manner but was pulled into Yi Hongyi's embrace. Nonsense. How could there be 7 colored fish in this world? Yi Hongyi's gentle tone didn't contain the slightest bit of reproach. He held Yarrow Moen tightly in his embrace as if he was holding a rare treasure. The fragrance of her body that he hadn't felt for a long time caused Yi Hongyi to become restless. Your Majesty, Her Highness Consort Li has already gone down for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. If she still doesn't come up, this servant is afraid that Her Highness won't be able to endure it. Seeing Yi Hongyi appear, Mingyu immediately knelt and begged. Nonsense, second older sister's duck water is better than anyone else. It's only been the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Second older sister said that there are 7 colored fish in the lake. It's true. Yarrow Moen looked towards Yi Hongyi innocently, her tender red lips slightly pouting, causing Yi Hongyi's heart to race. All right, then have Consort Li search a bit more. Wan ran over here, right? Her forehead is covered in sweat. Yi Hongyi's gaze fell greedily on Yarrow Moen's lustrous and plump red lips. His slightly rough fingers caressed Yarrow Moen's forehead, his movements as gentle as the wind. Mingyu hadn't expected that His Majesty wouldn't stop her master. Her heart suddenly chilled and she looked worriedly towards the figure swimming in Jade Lake. Why isn't there any? Sulwan must find 7 colored fish. Why isn't there any? Sulwan clearly dreamed of it. It was a celestial being who came to me in my dream. In the middle of the lake, Yarrow Sulwan swam more and more frantically, her body becoming weaker and weaker. Chapter 114. Wanna, you've seen Feng Yihan? Yi Hongyi only glanced at Yarrow Sulwan in the lake before turning to look at Wanna. He thought that there must be a reason why Yarrow Sulwan was so stupid. If she really could drown herself in Jade Lake, then he'd believe it. I've seen him. Your Majesty even let Wanna go to welcome him, but Wanna doesn't like him. He's like a block of wood, always with a straight face, as if everyone owes him something. Your Majesty, do you not like Wanna anymore? As Yarrow Moen spoke, she rested her head on Yi Hongyi's chest. She did her best to distract Yi Hongyi's attention because she was curious how long Yarrow Sulwan would last in the water. How could that be? In the entire inner palace, out of all the women, Zhen likes Wanna the most. Yi Hongyi's voice sounded incomparably sincere. Yarrow Moen also believed his words, but as of now, what she didn't want the most was Yi Hongyi's love. But Your Majesty hasn't been to Guan Osprey Palace in a long time. Wanna misses you. Wanna wants Your Majesty to hug Wanna to sleep. It's safe. Yarrow Moen rubbed her head against Yi Hongyi's chest as her lips curved into a cold smile. She knew that Yarrow Sulwan wasn't a good swimmer. It wasn't easy for her to last until now. In the middle of the lake, Yarrow Sulwan breathed heavily with all her might. Her wet hair blocked the extreme hatred in her eyes. That pair of figures on the shore pierced her eyes and made her heart hurt. Yarrow Sulwan used all her strength to swim back to shore, but when she met Yarrow Moen's eyes, she gave up struggling. She had to gamble. Not good. Your Majesty. Your Majesty doesn't have any strength left. Your Majesty hasn't reached the bottom of the lake, shouted Mingyu when she saw that Yarrow Sulwan's body was no longer struggling. Mingyu didn't want Yarrow Sulwan to die. If she died, who knew what kind of task An Bingshan would arrange for her? At the very least, if she stayed by Yarrow Sulwan's side, she would have a chance to get close to His Majesty. Yi Hongyi shook when he heard this and looked towards the center of the lake. The surface was calm and Yarrow Sulwan was nowhere to be seen. Second sister. Second sister. Yarrow Moen was about to rush out when Yi Hongyi pulled her back. Get into the water and save them. In reality, those guards had been waiting for a long time. When they heard Yi Hongyi's order, they all jumped into the lake. It's all Wan's fault. Woo-woo. Your Majesty, will second sister be alright? Wana remembers that second sister is very good at swimming. How could it be like this? Tears streamed down Yarrow Moen's face. She really didn't approve of Yarrow Sulwan's suicidal actions. If she really drowned like this, she would feel regret. It's not your fault. She was the one who insisted on looking for that 7-colored fish. Yi Hongyi pulled Yarrow Moen into his arms, his deep eyes staring towards Jade Lake. Had Yarrow Sulwan really gone stupid? Otherwise, why would he throw his life away? When the guards rescued Yarrow Sulwan, Yarrow Moen was the first to rush to Yarrow Sulwan's side, tears streaming down her face. At the side, Mingyu immediately rushed forward and fiercely pressed down on Yarrow Sulwan's chest. Only when Yarrow Sulwan spat out a few mouthfuls of water did she stop. 7-colored fish. Sulwan saw it. Your Majesty. Yarrow Sulwan only managed to say a few words before fainting. She had choked on too much water. Second sister. Your Majesty, what happened to second sister? Don't let anything happen to second sister. Yi Hongyi saw that Yarrow Moen's crying was becoming more and more sorrowful, so he once again pulled her into his embrace. The one who was going to die was Yarrow Sulwan, but Yarrow Moen's sorrowful cries seemed to steal the spotlight. What are you all standing there for? Hurry and carry Consort Li back and have Imperial Physician Shen treat her properly. Yi Hongyi roared in a low voice. Only now did Yarrow Sulwan get carried back to Pure Flower's palace by the guards. Your Majesty, Wana wants to go accompany second sister, alright? Yarrow Moen wiped the corners of her eyes. Her tear-stained eyes were sparkling and translucent. Don't worry, she's fine. Didn't she talk just now? Yi Hongyi's hand stroked Yarrow Moen's fair cheeks as he carefully comforted her. In his memory, he had never been this gentle towards a woman. He also wanted to restrain his concern for Yarrow Moen. After all, she was an idiot and couldn't be made empress. However, the more he endured, the stronger the desire in his heart. But Wana doesn't feel at ease. Your Majesty, let Wana go, alright? Yarrow Moen tugged on Yi Hongyi's hand and swayed it lightly. Her coquettish appearance made Yi Hongyi not know whether to laugh or cry. Alright, Tingyu, carefully serve your master. If anyone dares to bully her, come find us directly. Yi Hongyi still hadn't forgotten the scene in Guan Osprey Palace. Even though Yarrow Sulwan was currently unconscious, he still didn't feel at ease. This servant obeys. Tingyu bowed respectfully. Only when Yi Hongyi's figure disappeared from her line of sight did Yarrow Moen stop crying and turn to walk back to Pure Flower's palace. Your Highness, Consort Li couldn't have really gone stupid, right? Asked Tingyu as she followed behind Yarrow Moen with small steps. Even a fool has survival instincts. Just now, when she came out of the water, Ben Gong noticed that her legs didn't cramp. What does this mean? Yarrow Moen glanced towards Tingyu, her eyes clear and cold. This means she intentionally let herself sink to the bottom of the lake. Tingyu followed Yarrow Moen's reasoning and made a guess. How could such a scheming person be a fool? However, for the sake of drawing His Majesty's attention, she was actually willing to gamble with her life. It seems that she really has nowhere else to go. Yarrow Moen's lips curved into a cold smile, her eyes brilliant and dazzling. Your Highness, actually, this servant feels that His Majesty treats you very well. Ting Yu had held back these words for a long time. Although she could feel Master's feelings for the esteemed prince and could faintly feel Master's indifference towards His Majesty, she just felt that compared to Yi Junqing, His Majesty really treated Master extremely well. Yarrow Moen abruptly stopped walking and her cold eyes were suddenly covered in frost. Her cold gaze was like two icicles that pierced Ting Yu's body. Your Highness. The moment Ting Yu met Yarrow Moen's gaze, she instantly felt as if she had fallen into an icehouse. She stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to do. Ting Yu, how has Ben Gong treated you during this time? Yarrow Moen's cold voice drifted out from the corners of her lips. Her eyes were like an ancient well without any ripples. Your Highness has treated Ting Yu extremely well. Ting Yu has said something wrong. Please punish me, Your Highness. Ever since she had started following Yarrow Moen, Ting Yu had never seen Master's eyes this cold. It was as if the surrounding air had been frozen to a freezing point. You really did say something wrong. If Ben Gong hears those words again, Guan Osprey Palace definitely won't tolerate you, said Yarrow Moen coldly. There wasn't a trace of warmth in her voice. Ting Yu didn't say anything. It was too late for regrets. In Pure Flowers Palace, when Yarrow Sulwan woke up, she saw that Ming Yu was standing at the side with a bowl of ginger soup. Your Highness, the imperial physician instructed that you should drink this ginger soup as soon as you woke up to prevent catching a cold. Ming Yu carefully handed the bowl to Yarrow Sulwan. Your Majesty. Yarrow Sulwan looked towards Ming Yu with a pinched voice. His Majesty isn't here. Before Ming Yu could finish, Yarrow Sulwan abruptly overturned the bowl of ginger soup and her expression abruptly became ruthless. Whenever Yarrow Sulwan thought about how she was struggling in the water while His Majesty was hugging Yarrow Moen and kissing her, she felt as if her heart was being burned by a soldering iron. His Majesty actually didn't come to see Ben Gong, shouted Yarrow Sulwan in a low voice. It doesn't matter if His Majesty didn't come, WNR came. Right at this time, Yarrow Moen leisurely walked over from behind Ming Yu, her clear eyes filled with a teasing light. Ming Yu. Yarrow Sulwan hadn't expected that Yarrow Moen would be in the room and immediately glared at Ming Yu resentfully. Your Highness, this servant was just about to say. Ming Yu felt wronged. This truly had nothing to do with her. Withdraw. Yarrow Sulwan didn't want to listen to Ming Yu's explanation and waved her hand to dismiss her. Once Ming Yu left, Yarrow Sulwan looked towards Yarrow Moen coldly. Don't get cocky too early. Moen didn't get cocky. She only felt astonished. Second older sister really has the root of wisdom. 7-colored fish. What a poetic name. How did you come up with it? Yarrow Moen clicked her tongue in admiration, the teasing light in her eyes not diminishing. Since His Majesty likes fools, Ben Gong is just catering to his liking. Aren't you also playing dumb in front of His Majesty? We're the same. Yarrow Sulwan's tone was cold as she said this hatefully. Second older sister has a good idea. However, Moen has to remind second older sister that playing dumb isn't easy. Second older sister mustn't let the cat out of the bag. If His Majesty finds out that you're playing dumb to get favor, he'll definitely punish you for deceiving the monarch. At that time, second older sister will suffer a double loss. Don't blame WNR for not reminding you. Yarrow Moen sneered as her eyes curved into crescent moons. Same to you. There are some things that you and I both know. You can leave now, Pure Flowers Palace doesn't welcome you. Yarrow Sulwan glared at Yarrow Moen as she pointed at the palace door. Fine, since second older sister doesn't like Moen, then Moen will take her leave. Yarrow Moen lifted her brows. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly leaned over to Yarrow Sulwan's bedside. Second older sister once said that if His Majesty finds out about WNR's true colors one day, then WNR will definitely die even more miserably than eldest sister. According to what you're saying, if His Majesty finds out that second older sister was playing dumb, then he'll definitely die even more miserably than eldest sister. You. What are you trying to say? Yarrow Sulwan subconsciously swallowed as she looked at those deep and boundless eyes. She didn't know why, but she had a feeling that Yarrow Moen knew something, but she couldn't be sure. Nothing, I'm just reminding second older sister that playing with fire will only lead to self-destruction. You should be careful, Yarrow Moen said with a light smile, then swiftly left. The moment she looked back, Yarrow Moen swore in her heart that she would make Yarrow Sulwan experience all kinds of pain and die as humiliated as she had. When Yarrow Moen returned to Guan Osprey Palace, Yi Junqing was currently playing with the two kittens. His handsome face was pressed tightly against the kitten's pure white fur, and he seemed to be enjoying himself very much. If I didn't know better, I'd think that Prince is their father. This scene greatly improved Yarrow Moen's mood, especially since Yarrow Sulwan had started to play dumb according to her wishes. This really went according to her wishes. You came back just in time, this prince wants a kitten. Yi Junqing didn't mind Yarrow Moen's kind mockery. What does Prince want cats for? Yarrow Moen looked towards Yi Junqing in astonishment. Naturally to raise them. Yi Junqing continued to play with the kittens in his hands, not noticing Yarrow Moen's astonishment at all. But didn't Moen already agree to give one to Feng Yihan? Yarrow Moen suddenly felt that Yi Junqing was very different today. If her joke had been any other time, it would definitely have caused black lines to appear on Yi Junqing's face. You only agreed to give him one, but isn't there another one? Moen agreed to Feng Yihan because he saved Fluffy and her mother. Furthermore, he agreed to give Moen a generous gift in return. What did Prince do? What could Prince possibly give Moen? Yarrow Moen leisurely walked over to the chaise longue and slowly sat down next to Fluffy. She gently stroked Fluffy as she spoke. Chapter 115. Yarrow Moen, do you have the heart to let Quicksand know that he was swapped with a cat? She really didn't know if Feng Yihan would still praise Yarrow Moen for being naive, straightforward, and extraordinary if he saw her like this. In any case, he didn't see how Yarrow Moen was refined, but he saw that she was very vulgar. Does Prince agree? Yarrow Moen lifted her eyes unhurriedly, her crystal-clear eyes sparkling brightly. She was truly curious why Yi Junqing, who had always viewed Quicksand as his life, would suddenly be so willing to part with it. This prince has another condition. Yi Junqing finally got to the point. What? Yarrow Moen lifted her brows as she looked towards Yi Junqing. If the cat was just a cover, then what he was going to say next would probably be the main point. Feng Yihan invited you to drink tea and admire the moon tonight. This prince feels that it's necessary to be present, said Yi Junqing righteously. He also invited Prince. Yarrow Moen didn't expect that Feng Yihan would make such a request. It seemed like he wanted to break through this barrier. That's not the case, but this prince feels that it's necessary to go. Yi Junqing agreed. But Moen feels that there's no need. Moen can't agree to Prince's request, but Moen can give Prince a little kitten as a form of consolation. Yarrow Moen flatly refused. You don't want Quicksand anymore? Yi Junqing was very surprised by Yarrow Moen's refusal. Moen has thought about it. In the end, Yang Nansheng gave Quicksand to Prince out of sincerity. A gentleman should help others achieve their goals and not steal what others like. Moen has always thought of herself as a gentleman, so from now on, Prince doesn't need to worry about Moen stealing away Quicksand. Yarrow Moen's righteous attitude made Yi Junqing feel defeated. In reality, he really wanted to know why Feng Yihan was asking Yarrow Moen out. He didn't think that Feng Yihan would be in the mood to enjoy tea and flowers. Don't leave. This prince feels like there's still room for discussion. When Yi Junqing saw that Yarrow Moen had gotten up to walk towards the inner chambers, he chased after her unwillingly. Is Prince preparing to have a proper discussion with Moen on the bed in the inner chambers? Yarrow Moen came to a sudden stop at the door of the inner room. When she turned around, she saw that Yi Junqing's handsome face was just inches away from hers. She could even feel a hot and humid breath on her face. The ambiguous words and the ambiguous posture caused the two calm hearts to be stirred up. Yi Junqing already knew that Yarrow Moen's eyes were very good at deceiving people. Whenever she played dumb, her eyes would always look so innocent. But at this moment, He also discovered that Yarrow Moen's eyes were very captivating. Her eyes were like two bottomless pits that urged him to desperately look down. He wanted to know the secrets inside, but the deeper he looked, the deeper he sank until he was unable to extricate himself. He really wanted to avoid those eyes, but his gaze didn't seem to listen to him. For a moment, he even felt that Yarrow Moen's gaze was very familiar, as if it was the same pair of eyes he thought about day and night. Morsheen. Yi Junqing blurted out her name. In that instant, Yarrow Moen shuddered. Prince's expression makes Moen feel that Prince wants to go in with Moen. Yarrow Moen forced herself to remain calm and her cherry lips curved into a sweet smile. Cough cough. Feng Yihan has invited you to Harmony Palace at 5 o'clock. This prince is a bit tired. As Yi Junqing spoke, he walked around Yarrow Moen to push open the door to the inner chambers. Prince, what are you doing? Yarrow Moen looked towards Yi Junqing in shock. Although his expression was calm, his heart was actually in a frenzy. I went to the wrong door. Yi Junqing explained awkwardly before turning and disappearing from the main hall of Guan Osprey Palace. As Yarrow Moen looked at Yi Junqing's departing figure, she was filled with disappointment and frustration. Back then, she had given her heart to the wrong person and missed out on such a good man for no reason. Now that she could start over again, should she grab hold of his heart? But the current her, what right did she have to stand by his side? In the peach blossom forest, Feng Yihan stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The side of his face was hidden by the sea of flowers and the starlight, accentuating his beautiful and resolute features. His jade-like face, resplendent eyes, and especially the faint melancholy in his eyes, had a unique kind of decadent beauty that could topple heaven and earth. Passing through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching you, Your Highness the Crown Prince has a good temperament. A clear and melodious voice broke the silence. Yarrow Moen walked through the flower forest and slowly arrived in front of Feng Yihan. In terms of temperament, Yihan is ashamed of his inferiority, said Feng Yihan calmly as he invited Yarrow Moen to take a seat. Crown Prince must be joking. Moen doesn't have a temperament, so she wouldn't be able to enjoy tea and admire the moon. Yarrow Moen's eyes were as pure as a pool of clear water. It was very easy to drown in them. It seems that Consort Yarrow has guessed Yihan's intentions. Feng Yihan sat down in front of Yarrow Moen and gracefully poured her a cup of Longjing tea. Guessing is one thing, but hearing it from Your Highness Crown Prince's own mouth is another. Yarrow Moen took a small sip of the Longjing tea in the cup and instantly felt the fragrance linger in her mouth. She had to admit that Feng Yihan had put a lot of thought into this tea. But Yihan really wants to know if Consort Yarrow's thoughts coincide with Yihan's. Feng Yihan's slender eyes flickered with light. He was waiting for this woman to bring him an even greater surprise. Yin Shui. Yarrow Moen didn't waste words and just called out to Yin Shui. Subordinate Yin Shui kowtows in salute to master. Yin Shui's appearance was like a gust of wind, leaving no trace behind. Feng Yihan believed that his martial arts weren't weak, but he didn't know where Yin Shui had come from. Withdraw. Yin Shui suddenly disappeared as Yarrow Moen spoke. Her speed was so fast that it was as if she had never appeared. What does Consort Yarrow mean by this? Feng Yihan lifted his brows in shock as he looked towards Yarrow Moen. If Crown Prince wants to know this consort's strength, then this consort will show Crown Prince. Crown Prince also has hidden guards, so I'm sure you've heard of the Yin clan. Yin Shui's former master is Martial Alliance head Yang Nansheng. If they weren't best friends, does Crown Prince think that he would part with her? In the shadows, the corners of Yin Shui's lips twitched. She had just returned from Phoenix Feather Manor. No matter how she looked at it, she didn't think that Yang Nansheng viewed her master as a best friend. It seems that this time, the 7 phantom assassins won't be able to return. Feng Yihan's brows unconsciously relaxed, allowing Yarrow Moen to peek into his heart. This could be considered a battle of life and death for Feng Yihan. If he won, he would obtain a country. If he lost, he would lose a life. This consort has already displayed sufficient sincerity. Now, it should be His Highness Crown Prince's turn. Yarrow Moen set down the teacup, her eyes cold and emotionless. Consort Yarrow, just name it. Yihan definitely won't haggle. Feng Yihan knew that if he didn't have Yarrow Moen's support, he wouldn't be able to resist the 7 phantom assassins. No matter what Yarrow Moen asked for, he could only agree. Moen wants to ask for a favor from you on behalf of someone. Yarrow Moen's voice was light and gentle. Her beautiful face glowed faintly under the moonlight, as if she was a moon fairy who had accidentally descended into the mortal world. On behalf of who? Feng Yihan lifted his brows towards Yarrow Moen. This answer surprised him. Moen also wants to know if Crown Prince and I are on the same page. Yarrow Moen didn't say anything and just looked towards Feng Yihan with curved brows. Yi Hongi? That's not right. Feng Yihan sank into contemplation. The wind picked up and the peach trees rustled. The petals fluttered in the wind. It was so beautiful that it made one feel sad. Yi Junqing. Feng Yihan's voice was incomparably certain. When he saw the light in Yarrow Moen's eyes, a faint sourness welled up in his heart. He should have guessed that it was him a long time ago. You're helping him? Why? Is it because of your older sister? Feng Yihan longed to hear a definite answer, but Yarrow Moen didn't reply. If Crown Prince is willing to accept this favor, Moen will naturally do her best. If not, then just pretend we never met tonight. Yarrow Moen's expression was calm, as if she was certain that Feng Yihan wouldn't refuse. All right. In the future, Yihan will definitely return this favor to Yi Junqing with the strength of the state of Qi. Feng Yihan's eyes shone brightly. With a woman as wise and far-sighted as Yarrow Moen helping him, it was only a matter of time before the country of Chu changed hands. Moen will remember Crown Prince's words on behalf of the esteemed prince. Yarrow Moen nodded slightly, then got up to leave. However, Feng Yihan stopped her. Consort Yarrow is going to let such a beautiful day down. In the vast and boundless night sky, the moon was bright like a hook and the stars were bright and resplendent, accompanied by the gorgeous peach blossoms. It was indeed a beautiful scene. Yarrow Moen's lips curved into a faint smile. That's right, how could Moen let such a rare day down? Said Yarrow Moen slowly. Just when Feng Yihan thought that Yarrow Moen would stay, she quickened her footsteps and disappeared into the peach forest. Feng Yihan couldn't help but smile bitterly as he looked in the direction Yarrow Moen disappeared in. It was such a beautiful night, but the person she was looking for wasn't him. Yi Junqing, just how lucky are you? After leaving Harmony Palace, the moment Yarrow Moen stepped into Guan Osprey Palace, she saw Tingyu rushing over to welcome her. Your Highness, ever since you left, His Highness has been sitting on that stone bench drinking wine. Ever since that day, Tingyu finally understood Her Highness's intentions and didn't dare to have any other thoughts. You can withdraw. Yarrow Moen waved her hand lightly, then walked over to the stone bench in the courtyard. The 2 rows of pear trees were slender and elegant. The flowers were simple and elegant, and the leaves were slender and long. They swayed in the wind, giving off a pleasant sound. Among the pear blossoms, Yi Junqing sat alone on the stone bench in a blue gown. The night wind blew his long, ink-like hair into a beautiful arc. A clever smile welcomes people. A clear snow fragrance is worthy of cherishing. Comparing a clear snow to a pear blossom is very fitting. Yarrow Moen gracefully walked over like a fairy soaring through the clouds. She stopped on the swing next to Yi Junqing and tapped the ground with the tips of her feet. The swing swayed gently and her white skirt fluttered in the wind. It was an incomparably beautiful sight. When Yi Junqing heard this, the light in his eyes disappeared in an instant. Then he turned away in a huff and continued to drink his wine. Actually, with Prince's martial arts, it wouldn't be difficult to find out what Moen and Feng Yihan were talking about. Yarrow Moen broke the silence. Then why did you have Yin Shui stop this prince? The moment Yi Junqing spoke, he realized that he had let the cat out of the bag. So Prince has been there before. Yarrow Moen chuckled when she heard this, then looked towards Yi Junqing with interest. Cough cough. The 7 phantom assassins could come at any moment, so this prince has to ensure Feng Yihan's safety at all times. What's wrong with that? Retorted Yi Junqing indignantly. Whatever the prince does is right. Yarrow Moen leisurely got up from the swing and slowly sat down in front of Yi Junqing. Then she picked up the wine pot on the stone bench and poured herself a cup. Chapter 116. That's not your cup. Yi Junqing was just about to snatch the wine cup back when Yarrow Moen beat him to it. When he saw that Yarrow Moen had downed the wine in one gulp, he couldn't help but frown. Women shouldn't drink so rashly. Ahem. Prince is drinking alone, but there are 2 wine cups. If it wasn't prepared for Mo Wan, then who was it for? The wine was very strong and her throat felt like it was being burned by fire. Yarrow Mo Wan placed her fingers on her neck and coughed lightly. It was prepared for Morshin. In the end, Yi Junqing didn't say it, but Yarrow Moen had already guessed what he was thinking. His heart suddenly sank. This scene was just like that night in the Rippling Waves Pavilion. It was the same beautiful scene, but the thoughts were different. At the time, she had been so focused on Yi Hongyi that she hadn't noticed the sorrow in Yi Junqing's eyes at all. She had really been a fool back then. Yi Junqing's heart must have hurt a lot back then. Moen is going to sing a song for Prince. How about Moen play the zither for Prince? Also, let Tingyu prepare some appetizers. It's boring to drink alone. Yarrow Moen suddenly really wanted to make up for the regret from that night. She was just about to get up and go back to her room to get the zither when she heard Yi Junqing speak. This prince feels that you're not suited to be this gentle. Yi Junqing was shocked by Yarrow Moen's abnormality and spoke the truth for a moment. When Yarrow Moen heard this, she looked towards Yi Junqing coldly. When she saw the sincerity in Yi Junqing's eyes, she finally grew angry. Then Wang Ye can drink alone here. Moen won't keep you company anymore. Yarrow Moen angrily turned around and left the stone platform. I didn't ask you to accompany me, Yi Junqing reflexively replied. However, Yarrow Moen abruptly turned around and glared fiercely at Yi Junqing. Seeing this, Yi Junqing immediately fell silent. In the next second, Yarrow Moen suddenly grabbed a handful of pear blossoms and threw them on the ground. Then she stormed off angrily. This was the first time she had been angered by Yi Junqing. Did this king say anything wrong? Why are you so angry? Yi Junqing only dared to mutter a few words after Yarrow Moen left. After returning to the main hall, Yarrow Moen angrily sat down at the table. She casually picked up a teacup and gulped down a few mouthfuls. I just poured this. Yang Nansheng looked towards Yarrow Moen innocently. So what? Can't I drink it? Yarrow Moen fiercely slammed the teacup down and raised her eyebrows. Sure, drink as much as you want. Do you want more? It's Nansheng's honor to be able to pour tea for Moen. Yang Nansheng's expression was sincere as he eagerly lifted the teapot. When did you come? Yarrow Moen let out a breath and returned to the topic at hand. When you told Feng Yihan that we were best friends. When Yang Nansheng heard this, he almost fell off the branch. Is there a problem with Moen's words? Yarrow Moen looked towards Yang Nansheng innocently. Nansheng deeply agrees. Yang Nansheng firmly nodded his head. Yarrow Moen's temper wasn't right today, so it was best not to provoke her. This was what Yang Nansheng had learned. The 7 phantom assassins will arrive tomorrow night. Yin Shui can deal with 3 of them, but what about the remaining 4? Yarrow Moen restrained the irritation in her eyes and looked towards Yang Nansheng solemnly. Nansheng, I really didn't expect that you'd actually have Yin Shui find me for a mere 7 phantom assassins. Do you know that this is like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken? Yang Nansheng had a helpless expression. His title as the dignified Martial Alliance Master wasn't something that could be bought with money. Are you sure you can deal with them? Yarrow Moen knew that Yang Nansheng was the Martial Alliance Master, but in the current world, there were far too many people who cheated sheep's heads while selling dog meat. Before she could see Yang Nansheng's true abilities, she naturally wouldn't have too much hope. In the blink of an eye, Yang Nansheng was incomparably confident, arrogant, and narcissistic. The next day, Yi Junqing continued to stroll around with Feng Yihan while Yarrow Moen stayed in the main hall to keep Fluffy company. Everything went on as usual during the day, but as the clock approached, the atmosphere in Harmony Palace grew increasingly heavy. Even though they had made the most thorough arrangements, Yarrow Moen still felt a little apprehensive. Consort Yarrow, Yihan feels that it's better for you to return to Guan Osprey Palace. Feng Yihan's gaze was deep and his expression was filled with unconcealable worry. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, he didn't want Yarrow Moen to suffer with him. The following days were indeed going to be difficult. This prince also feels that it's best for you to return first. Yi Juanqing's expression was solemn. When his gaze landed on Yarrow Moen's face, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. How could a woman like Yarrow Moen be so calm and indifferent? It was as if she was facing an army of 10,000 without batting an eyelid. Crown Prince's tea really is delicious. If I don't drink a few more cups, how could Moen bear to leave? Yarrow Moen smiled faintly. No one could tell that she was nervous, but that didn't mean that she was really that calm. If anything happened to Feng Yihan, not only would Yi Juanqing be implicated, Chu Morbei would also become restless. Thus, she couldn't afford to lose this battle. However, what comforted Yarrow Moen was that Yi Hongyi seemed to know that the 7 phantom assassins were going to act tonight, so he had purposefully withdrawn the Imperial Guards near Harmony Palace. This made things much more convenient for her. There was finally movement on the roof. Although it was soft, it was disorderly. It was clear that the person they were waiting for had arrived. Yi Juanqing knew that it was already too late to persuade Yarrow Moen to leave, so when he heard the movement, he deliberately got up and sat down next to Yarrow Moen. Feng Yihan, who had gotten up at almost the same time, silently sat back down when he saw this. Compared to himself, Yarrow Moen probably hoped that Yi Juanqing would sit next to her. At this life and death juncture, Feng Yihan was shocked by his own hesitation. However, Yarrow Moen, whom he had only interacted with a few times, had already taken it to heart. When the battle starts, you're not allowed to run around. Stay behind this prince, said Yi Juanqing in a low voice. You're certain that you can protect me? Asked Yarrow Moen softly as a hint of brilliance flashed through her eyes. Unless this prince dies. These simple words caused small ripples in Yarrow Moen's heart. Why? You've always hated me. The anticipation in Yarrow Moen's eyes deepened. Because you're Morshin's younger sister. For a moment, Yarrow Moen even felt jealous of herself back then. Just what kind of fate had it been for him to miss her so much? Just as Yi Juanqing finished speaking, Ting Feng and Liu Shuo crashed in through the window. Using the candlelight, Yarrow Moen could clearly see that both of their faces were deathly pale and that blood was seeping from the corners of their lips. They had most likely suffered serious internal injuries. Master, hurry and leave. Ting Feng abruptly jumped up from the ground and stood in front of Feng Yihan. Almost at the same time, 7 figures surrounded Yarrow Moen and the others. Kill everyone in this room without mercy. The cold voice seemed to carry the weight of metal as it hit the wall. Yarrow Moen subconsciously frowned. She saw that the 7 people in front of her were all wearing King Yama's masks and black cloaks, so it was impossible to distinguish them. Yin Shui. Yarrow Moen called out to Yin Shui in a stern voice. Almost at the same time, Yin Shui moved at the same speed and broke through the window with her double-edged sword. The tricky angle caught the members of the 7 phantom assassins off guard. Their weapons clashed, creating an ear-piercing screech. The friction created dazzling sparks. Everyone was looking forward to the ending. At the same time, Ting Feng and Liu Shuo also charged towards the members of the 7 phantom assassins who were closest to them. At this moment, Yarrow Moen clearly felt a firm and strong hand holding her. The sudden warmth caused Yarrow Moen to look up. When she saw the determination in Yi Juanqing's eyes, Yarrow Moen felt inexplicably at ease. No one saw what had happened. When Yin Shui stood in front of Yarrow Moen instantly smelled a fishy and salty smell. She knew that Yin Shui had been injured, but Liu Shuo and Ting Feng's injuries were even more serious. Chapter 117. The Yin clan's hidden guards truly live up to their reputation, said the faint voice. Yarrow Moen lifted her eyes to look at the 7 phantom assassins. Although there wasn't much change on the surface, she noticed that the blood under the feet of 3 of them had already formed a small stream. They were definitely heavily injured. Yin Shui was right, she could deal with 3 of them. Yin Shui, take her and leave. Yi Juanqing knew very well that the only reason Yin Shui had been able to injure the 7 phantom assassins was because she had caught them off guard. Right now, the 7 phantom assassins were on high alert, so it would be even more difficult to injure them. Furthermore, Yin Shui was also heavily injured. Master. Yin Shui turned to look towards Yarrow Moen. When she saw that Yarrow Moen wasn't speaking, she understood. What you want is this crown prince's head. Let them go. Feng Yihan's expression was grave and his voice was bone-chilling. We only recognize one master. Feng Yihan's request was clearly rejected. Sorry, I've implicated you guys. Feng Yihan looked towards Yarrow Moen apologetically. Boundless pity welled up in his heart. Yarrow Moen only smiled slightly. She knew that this wasn't the end. 7 Assassination Technique. The sinister voice rang out once more. The 7 phantom assassins suddenly moved and started circling around Yarrow Moen and the others. They moved faster and faster, so fast that it was dizzying. Following that, there was a burst of noise. Yarrow Moen suddenly felt as if there were 1,000 bees buzzing in her ears and her head started to hurt even more. Illusion Technique. Hurry and circulate your qi. Feng Yihan suddenly cried out. He immediately sat down and placed his hands on his dantian. Right after, Yi Junqing and Yin Shui also sat down cross-legged. They placed one hand on their dantian and the other on Yarrow Moen's back at the same time. At this moment, Yarrow Moen suddenly felt as if a clear spring had flowed into her dantian and the noise by her ears instantly quieted down. However, as time mercilessly passed, the noise grew louder and louder. Yarrow Moen looked towards Yi Junqing worriedly and found that his forehead was already covered in sweat. Yin Shui was the same. Pu Ting Feng, who was the first to be defeated, spat out a mouthful of blood. Immediately after, he unconsciously picked up the sword beside him and stabbed it into his body as if his soul had been sucked out. This was the 7 kills absolute. Through the use of illusions, one would view oneself as an enemy, and in the process of self-mutilation, one would enjoy the thrill of victory. Yi Junqing, Yin Shui, let me go. Yarrow Moen roared angrily. She wanted to get up, but she discovered that her body seemed to be stuck to their palms. No matter how she struggled, she couldn't break free. Don't move. Otherwise, we'll die even faster, said Yi Junqing solemnly. The corners of his lips trembled slightly, but Yin Shui's mouth was already bleeding. Seeing that they could no longer hold on, a buzzing sound suddenly resounded. Immediately after, the 7 phantom assassins that had been circling around them suddenly dispersed and fell to the ground, spitting out blood. They looked to be in extreme pain. Just one move and you've become like this. The 7 phantom assassins is only SOSO. A gentle but not sinister voice rang out. Yang Nansheng, who was dressed in flowing red, lifted his brows as he looked at the battered and exhausted 7 phantom assassins on the ground. His lips curved coldly. Moen thought that you were dead. Yarrow Moen glared fiercely at Yang Nansheng, then immediately helped Yi Junqing, who no longer had much strength left, up. At the same time, Feng Yihan sealed Ting Feng's acupuncture points, causing him to temporarily lose consciousness so that he wouldn't do anything to harm himself again. Liu Shuo and Yin Shui were slightly better, so they also stood up to protect Yarrow Moen. Ahem, that's why I said that you were using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. Do you see now? That's the truth. In front of me, Yang Nansheng, the 7 phantom assassins can't even withstand a single blow. Yang Nansheng stood there arrogantly with his arms crossed in front of his chest as he boasted non-stop about his power. Although the 7 phantom assassins' illusion technique is powerful, if it's disturbed, there will definitely be a backlash. Especially when they use the illusion technique at the end, they will use 100% of their inner strength. If they're disturbed at this time, the backlash will be the most severe. Ting Feng was already affected by the illusion technique earlier, so it's clear that they've already used 90% of their inner strength. At this time, Alliance Head only needed to give them a light blow and this would be the result. Feng Yihan calmly analyzed as he wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. Oh, Moen understands. This is what you meant by using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken, Nansheng? Yarrow Moen looked towards Yang Nansheng disdainfully. This alliance had only chose the most effective method. Even if they didn't use the 7 phantom assassins, this alliance head would still be able to take care of them effortlessly. All of you, get up and fight again, retorted Yang Nansheng angrily. Moen can take care of them in their current state, said Yarrow Moen disapprovingly. No matter what, Ihan thanks Alliance Head for your help. Feng Ihan cupped his hands towards Yang Nansheng. Just as Yang Nansheng was about to speak, Yarrow Moen seized the opportunity. You don't need to remember this favor. Moen was the one who invited him, so Moen will be the one to return the favor. You just need to remember what you promised Moen, said Yarrow Moen meaningfully as she looked towards Feng Ihan. Consort Yarrow, don't worry. Feng Ihan definitely won't go back on his word. Feng Ihan turned to look towards Yarrow Moen, then inadvertently glanced at Yi Junqing, who was standing next to Yarrow Moen. He felt an indescribable sense of disappointment. As for these 7 people, I'll leave them to the Crown Prince to deal with. Moen bids farewell. Yarrow Moen turned around to support Yi Junqing as they left Harmony Palace. If it wasn't for the fact that she'd poured so much true energy into him, Yi Junqing definitely wouldn't have been injured to this extent. He wouldn't have fainted as soon as they returned to Guan Osprey Palace. Yarrow Moen only walked out of the bedroom after she helped Yi Junqing onto her couch. Why haven't you left yet? Asked Yarrow Moen suspiciously when she saw Yang Nansheng sitting in the main hall. I've been waiting for you. Didn't you say earlier that you were going to return a favor? Yang Nansheng looked towards Yarrow Moen seriously. Did I? How come Moen doesn't remember? Yarrow Moen shrugged, then walked over to the table. Hey, so many people heard it, you can't go back on your word. Also, if you're like this, how are you going to beg people in the future? Yang Nansheng hurriedly walked over to Yarrow Moen. You still dare to ask me for a favor? If it weren't for you, would Yi Junqing have been so heavily injured? Yin Shue's injuries aren't light either, and Liu Shuo will probably need to rest for a while. This was all caused by you, so you should naturally pay for their recovery expenses. Next time you come, remember to bring the money. Yarrow Moen grumbled as she picked up the teapot and walked towards the bedroom. Yarrow Moen, even if you're unreasonable, there should be a limit, right? If it weren't for me, you guys would have died a long time ago. Yang Nansheng was extremely speechless. How did he get to know such a snobbish and petty woman? How did they get to know each other? Who did Moen do all of this for? Yang Nansheng, in the end, Moen has always been helping you take care of that person inside. In terms of favors, you owe me countless times. 1,000 taels, not a single cent less. Now, please leave. Yi Junqing needs peace. Yarrow Moen lifted her brows towards Yang Nansheng. She truly felt that Yang Nansheng's beauty could overturn the heavens and earth. Even in this sinister state, he was still very good-looking. You. Gold or silver? Yang Nansheng said dejectedly. He finally understood one thing. In this world, the one thing he shouldn't do the most was reason with women, especially a crafty woman like Yarrow Moen. When he saw the strange smile on Yarrow Moen's face, Yang Nansheng suddenly realized that his mouth really was cheap. Gold. After throwing these 2 words down, Yarrow Moen had already pushed open the door and entered the bedroom. Yang Nansheng was left alone at the door, filled with grief and indignation. The night was silent. Moonlight spilled in through the carved window lattice, filling the room with moonlight. Yarrow Moen leaned against the side of the bed, her clear eyes staring at the unconscious man on the bed. Junqing, you really are stupid to death. It's a good thing I'm still alive, otherwise what would you do? After an unknown amount of time, Yarrow Moen finally fell asleep. Chapter 118. Will you die if you don't piss me off for a day? When Yi Junqing opened his eyes early in the morning, he saw that Yarrow Moen's face was pressed against his palm as she slept soundly. Her hair was messy in front of Yarrow Moen's forehead, blocking her beautiful face, making it vaguely visible. Morshine. For some reason, Yi Junqing reached out to brush aside that strand of hair to see the familiar face behind it. What are you doing? A clear voice suddenly rang out. Yarrow Moen abruptly stood up and looked straight at Yi Junqing. Cough cough, cough cough cough, water. Yarrow Moen's actions were so sudden that Yi Junqing coughed violently in fright. His fingers paused in the air and turned to look at the blue porcelain teapot on the table. Yarrow Moen rubbed her eyes and walked to the table. This is your room. Why is this prince here? Only then did Yi Junqing notice where he was and immediately jumped off the bed. Did my bed grow thorns? Yarrow Moen was a bit bothered by Yi Junqing's reaction. No, it's just, cough, water. Yi Junqing didn't continue, but Yarrow Moen knew what he was worried about. If a prince was discovered lying on the bed of a noble consort, what would that mean? Right at this time, Ting Yu knocked on the door and broke the awkward situation. Your Highness, the Crown Prince of Qi has sent someone to invite Your Highness and Prince to Harmony Palace for a meal. The food on the table clearly didn't come from the imperial kitchen of Chu Palace. Yarrow Moen didn't say anything. She knew that Feng Yihan was definitely on guard against Yi Hongyi, but he was overthinking things. Yi Hongyi wouldn't go looking for trouble. It's just breakfast, isn't it a bit too sumptuous? Yarrow Moen smiled. After last night, life and death had been decided. The current Feng Yihan was like a phoenix rising from the ashes. He would definitely accomplish great things in the future. These were all made by the imperial chefs that Yihan brought from the state of Qi. You don't have to say too much. If the two of you have the opportunity to visit the state of Qi in the future, Yihan will definitely treat you with great hospitality. Feng Yihan was handsome and spirited. His eyes were bright and his voice was powerful and resonant. Crown Prince is too polite. Yi Junqing cupped his hands in greeting with a smile. Compared to Feng Yihan, the light in Yi Junqing's eyes was less severe. Fame was like a fleeting cloud to him. Whether it was in the past or now, he didn't care about it at all. Perhaps Feng Yihan's miraculous survival had greatly shocked Yi Hongyi, or perhaps Yi Hongyi's spies in Qi had received some information, but on the 10th day of Feng Yihan's arrival in the Chu Palace, Yi Hongyi actually held a state banquet in honor of Feng Yihan. To Feng Yihan, this late banquet was already meaningless. However, he had a smile on his face throughout the entire banquet and appeared very magnanimous. The day Feng Yihan left, he made a special trip to Guan Osprey Palace to pick up Fluffy's baby. He also promised Yarrow Moen that he would definitely treat that little kitten like a national treasure. Fluffy, on the other hand, had practically searched the entire Guan Osprey Palace for the sake of finding her baby. It wasn't until the second day that her anxiety finally eased. Fluffy, don't worry. Feng Yihan will definitely treat your baby well. In Guan Osprey Palace, Yarrow Moen was currently comforting Fluffy when Yin Shui suddenly appeared. Master, Ben Lei sent news that the troops Great Shu had gathered in Mongyuan have already retreated. Mongyuan is temporarily safe. As Yin Shui spoke, she handed the purple letter to Yarrow Moen. It's safe this time, but what about next time? Yarrow Moen held the letter pensively. After this incident, Yarrow Moen could confirm one thing, and that was that Chu Morbei's desire to seize Mongyuan had never disappeared. What a troublesome fellow. Send a letter to Ben Lei to move the money out. In the end, Mongyuan is a troublesome place, ordered Yarrow Moen coldly. Yes. When Yin Shui received the order and turned around, she seemed to suddenly remember something. She casually took out a banknote worth 1,000 taels of gold and handed it to Yarrow Moen. This is from Yang Nansheng to Master. After reporting, Yin Shui turned and disappeared. Yarrow Moen couldn't help but smile as she looked at the banknote in her hand. What did you scam from Yang Nansheng this time? When Yi Junqing entered the room, he only heard the last sentence. It's nothing, it's just 1,000 taels of gold. Yarrow Moen was in a great mood, so she casually put the banknote away. 1,000 taels of gold, it's just 1,000 taels of gold. Why would he give you money for no reason at all? Yi Junqing walked over to Yarrow Moen with a questioning expression as he spoke solemnly, his gaze sharp. Is Prince asking about Moen's privacy? Yarrow Moen looked towards Yi Junqing as if it were none of his business, then she walked over to the table and picked up the porcelain bowl. Your words are truly getting more and more harsh. This prince was just asking out of curiosity. When Yi Junqing saw that Yarrow Moen had no intention of replying, he tried to find a way out of this embarrassing situation. Then Moen will satisfy Prince's curiosity. The reason Nansheng gave Moen the money was because he was worried that Moen wouldn't be able to eat her fill and wear warm clothes in the imperial palace, so he specially subsidized Moen. Yarrow Moen moved closer to Yi Junqing and said this seriously. Is Yang Nansheng blind? Who on earth is the one that doesn't have enough to eat and wear warm clothes right now? Yi Junqing exhaled heavily. He was extremely speechless. Compared to Yarrow Moen, he was much more suitable to receive this sum of money. Yi Junqing had no idea that if it weren't for him, Yang Nansheng wouldn't have obediently given the money to Yarrow Moen. At this time, Yarrow Moen was smiling faintly and only focused on eating. Junqing, in the near future, the entire world will be yours. Why would you need to worry about not having enough to eat and wear warm clothes? Ever since Feng Yihan left, Yi Junqing began to investigate Nurse Sun, Eunuch Zhang, and Eunice whereabouts. Now that he had Liu Shao's help, Yi Junqing quickly found out that Nurse Sun hadn't returned to her home in Heziyi as recorded in the records. This speed made Yarrow Moen slightly worried. Thus, for the first time in his life, Yarrow Moen had Yang Nansheng act like a villain and forcefully take Liu Shao back from Yi Junqing's hands. Unlike Yin Shui, when Yang Nansheng had given Liu Shao to Yi Junqing, he hadn't allowed Liu Shao to change hands. Prince seems to be very unhappy. That night, Yarrow Moen started to tease Yi Junqing. This prince wants to sever all ties with Yang Nansheng, said Yi Junqing fiercely. As he spoke, he slammed his chopsticks into the bottom of his bowl. Why? Did he offend you? Asked Yarrow Moen even though she already knew the answer. He actually wanted Liu Shao back. Yi Junqing truly couldn't swallow this. He had just found out that there was something fishy about Nurse Sun's whereabouts, but Yang Nansheng wanted Liu Shao back at this critical juncture. This was too unkind. Most importantly, he had already made his relationship clear to Yang Nansheng, but Yang Nansheng didn't seem to be shaken in the slightest. He was truly heartless. Yarrow Moen suddenly fell silent and her expression turned solemn. Are you all right? Yi Junqing asked worriedly when he saw Yarrow Moen's abnormality. Before he knew it, his concern for Yarrow Moen had already surpassed his imagination. However, this subtle change was something that even Yi Junqing himself hadn't noticed. How do I say this? I've always felt that Yang Nansheng was indifferent towards me, but now it seems that he truly loves me to the core. Yarrow Moen put down her bowl and chopsticks, then looked up with a calm expression. Why? Yi Junqing looked towards Yarrow Moen in confusion. These words made him feel very uncomfortable. Liu Shao. Yarrow Moen's cherry lips parted slightly. By the time she finished speaking, Liu Shao was already standing in front of Yi Junqing. In this moment, Yi Junqing finally understood. Yang Nansheng had taken Liu Shao from him and now he was running over to Yarrow Moen to fawn over her. The moment Yi Junqing saw Liu Shao, he felt like his lungs were about to explode. When Yarrow Moen saw Yi Junqing's face turn red, she waved her hand in satisfaction to dismiss Liu Shao. Yarrow Moen. Yi Junqing took a deep breath, then looked towards the leisurely and content Yarrow Moen and called out softly. What is it? Yarrow Moen opened her harmless eyes and smiled. Would you die if you didn't anger this prince for a day? Yi Junqing had never asked a question as seriously as he did now. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.